Cheers. What's going on, fellas?
Yeah.
Oh,
what's
there
going
it
on?
is. Jeremiah, what's up,
Jeremiah,
man?
what's up,
Good to have you
brother?
in here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I can't like getting like this close. Just the tip.
Oh, man. That's a good beer, dude.
Finger under the tab.
The finger to the tab. Yeah, that's how it goes. They the Sweetwaters, they have the little spot for you to stick your finger under. It's like mint. It's like a concave.
You've
right
been
there.
saying that, but I still haven't noticed it.
Dude, whenever I pointed it out, you said yeah.
Yeah, but the more I start looking at the other ones, they kind of look similar.
Well,
Maybe
it
I'm
doesn't look the
crazy.
same. It feels different. It's like a little more loose.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What's
yeah.
up, dude? What you been
What's
up
up? Nothing much, just school, work.
to? Right. You said you teach a class at Lander, right?
Well, yeah, it's an introductory class, so I just basically go over University 101 stuff.
What is like University 101? I never went to college. I went to tech school, so I don't really know.
A lot of universities have introductory classes. They're only like 1 credit hour, but it's basically just to make sure students are adjusting to university life properly and like settling
They picked you
into
to do this?
They picked me to do this. No, I mean, we go over a lot of different things as well. So some of it is just like the past few weeks we've been talking about like social consciousness, just like being socially aware. But before that, it was just kind of like time management skills, how to study.
Yeah, you are pretty good at that. You are definitely good at time management skills. I noticed like anytime, and you're a lot better at me or a lot better at this than I am. But anytime like I'll be like, hey, y'all want to go out tonight? You're like, oh man, I can't. I got a test due at 12 o'clock, and it's like I'm like, dude, it's 11 a.m.
If that was better, I would already had it done. Yeah.
Like it's 11 a.m. You got all day. And he's like, yeah, I want to make sure I do it good though.
Yeah.
So it's just like introduction to like it's helping students become university students rather than just be like still high school.
So it's like that so it's like a transition class
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
I got
We're
you. That makes
transitioning,
sense.
yeah, we're
transitioning. We're transitioning class. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's what's up, dude. I actually just found out about that. Noah told me about that like yesterday. I was talking to him. Me and him got dinner last night, and he was like, "Yeah, Noah, Jeremiah teaching a class too at Lander."
You remind me of. Have you ever thought about being a film critic?
I don't. I just do it. I don't think about it.
Letterbox, baby.
I feel like, how do you become like one of those big time like movie film critics?
I think
I'm
you
sure there
have
has to be some kind of schooling, right?
Yeah, first you need schooling, and I think one way you would do it is you'd have to be like a journalist. You'd probably have to go into
Right.
some industry where your job is to write and talk about things, and then build up like credit that way. And then another way you could probably do it is getting into the industry itself, and then basically just like being a director, and then you can just criticize everyone from that position.
You ever thought about doing either one?
I mean a little bit, but it's I don't know. With the way I'm going now, I feel like it might be a little too late, and plus I'm not sure if I would really enjoy it.
I don't.
For those of you who don't know, Jeremiah, we refer to him as the movie monster.
The movie,
Yeah.
He is the movie monster.
I'm just gonna put Brew Collar podcast with the movie,
The movie
monster.
monster.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the movie
yeah.
monster,
I like
yeah.
that. I like that. But why? You said why? Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't you enjoy it? Because I feel like you do have a passion for it. You know, it seems
I'm
like
not
it's very
sure if I
suitable
could
for you.
really build up a following. I'm not sure if the stuff I would say would really resonate with an American audience. Really,
I think you're selling yourself short.
I think so too.
maybe.
I think
don't know.
I have to say
That would be great, though. It'd be an awesome job. Watch movies and just be, like, mean.
Watch
be critical.
Watch movies and just be mean.
Yeah, but, like, a lot of the reviews I leave on Letterboxd are even just kind of, like, quotes from the movie or just, like,
quirky shit.
I'm
Yeah,
the same
just
way.
makes-
yeah.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, for sure. I get it.
Yeah. But I do kind of, there's a part of me that kind of wants to, like, just add what, like, I truly think of this movie.
Have you have you seen Mom's movie reviews on Letterboxd?
Yeah.
They're great.
Freaky.
Yeah.
The only movie that was just
Oh
freaky,
man,
freaky.
it's so good. It's so funny.
The last movie review she did.
She's friends with all of them on Letterboxd.
I know, it's great.
Yeah.
She's even got, like,
She'll reply to them.
followers.
Yeah, she has followers. Because
Like-
she watches so many.
Because
horror
I was like,
movies.
okay, you know, you got me, you, Jeremiah, Jacob, and Noah.
Noah,
That's 5.
yeah.
She's got like 15 followers.
Yeah,
I'm
so
like,
funny.
where are you getting all these like people actually? You know, she's
Just random
so
people.
yeah. They like to see what she says.
So she watched The Killer recently, the same day I think we did when it came out. You know,
Yeah.
it came out yesterday. David Fincher's new film, and the review she left was "Sneaky Man!" exclamation mark.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, I guess so. It's pretty
Is that relevant? Is that relevant
She
to say?
didn't like my review though, so I can't reciprocate. I can't.
What was your review of The Killer?
So
Very
in
sneaky
the
man.
so
Very
throughout
sneaky
the
man.
Yeah, very
Sneaky man indeed.
In the movie, it plays the Smiths a lot, and one of the songs like from the Smiths is "Girlfriend in a Coma," and it's just like "Girlfriend in a coma." I know, it's
That sounds like
I'm a girlfriend.
Talking Heads.
Yeah. So, they're very. I mean, if you like Talking Heads,
Definitely, I like Talking Heads.
But so my
Don't
review
like the
is
Smiths.
never put the girlfriend of a Smiths fan in a coma. It's serious because that's what happens.
Little witty.
A little witty. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
know,
if
you
you
Well,
know.
inside joke action. I like that.
I like that.
It's like two inside jokes. You have to
Yeah,
listen to the
there you
Smiths
go.
and
And
watch the
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
David Fincher's the guy that did Fight Club, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
You ever thought about like doing like having your own podcast or anything like that, where you kind of critique movies and kind of put your taste and your personality onto how you see movies? Because I think I could really see you do that. I feel like you speak very
I
well.
feel like
You have a lot of
that's something you should
passion
look
for
into.
movies,
I'd probably stutter a lot. And
I mean,
dude.
you're not stuttering right
It's
now.
really hard to
And
get
you're-
my
and we're
ideas
recording.
across.
Dude, I
I
have.
haven't really said anything though. I'm just.
We're just talking. That's exactly how it is.
Yeah, this is how it goes. Yeah,
That's the fun part about
Yeah.
it. I talked about
Dude,
doing.
I've always struggled with a stutter. Yeah, I always have.
You
Well,
just fake
I
that
guess
stutter.
like
That
it's
was-
not really like
that was wrong.
self-conscious.
I feel like it's wrong to fake a stutter.
The only reason I did is I literally just stuttered right before I faked it. So it
It's
just
more
felt
of-
necessary.
It's more of just like laying out what I really think about something in like a a systematic, easily understandable way.
Yeah.
That's kind of like probably my biggest issue. That's why I like writing more than speaking or anything.
Yeah.
What do you write?
I mean, like,
anything,
just,
as
it's
far
just
as in general.
yeah. So like, I mean, like at university, writing papers on topics that I like and find interest in, and turning those in as assignments, or even sometimes just writing my own stuff, little poems and stuff.
Okay, cool. That's nice. I like that. I would like for you
Silly
to share
little
some of those.
poet guy.
Dude,
Yeah, silly little poet
I,
guy. Was
I
about
could
to point at
see
Jim
you
Morrison
being
right
into
there.
poems because I've kind of thought about writing some myself.
I started writing one about
Should
6
do
months
it.
ago.
Did you?
So nice.
Yeah, and then I stopped.
Yeah. What's nice about it?
You get to express yourself kind of like in a really personal, artistic way, and you also get to kind of build up, I guess, this little interesting aspect, like a kind of like a contemplative aspect of your personality. That's
Yeah.
really useful. Helps you, I guess, process things. But it's just beautiful too. Adds a sense of beauty to your life that's really valuable.
I like that.
I like
I think
that too,
that's very
yeah.
important. That's kind of what we use this podcast for.
Oh yeah.
And it's also like I bet that it could be kind of therapeutic in a way of like just putting down
It's
how
good
you
vocabulary.
feel onto paper. It's like someone could read this one day, someone might not, but like this is like I said it in my own artistic way. I think that could be kind of soothing.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then, yeah, it's kind of hard to explain too, because some people a lot of people, I guess, start off with just like illustrations, and it's not like there's a hierarchy to these things. It's not like you start off drawing stuff and then work your way up, and then boom, you're the poet. But it's just kind of like different modes of expressing yourself. So, if you can draw, that would also be a good outlet. If you can write, this is where a lot of the greatest artists come from, making music and stuff. But yeah, it's very soothing, and you can like express yourself in ways that aren't really like direct and clinical. You're not just like sitting here like, oh, I'm sad. You can just kind of like put it in a narrative.
In a way where it's like, yeah, it's not so in your face on the nose. Like I'm very sad right now. It's like,
Right.
oh,
Stop playing the
you
blues.
can kind of, yeah, but you can also kind of like,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, the creativity of the writer can put in perspective how they feel in this odd way and almost try to take you out of the moment of reading it into that place.
Right.
I think that's pretty cool.
I've got a strange question. Do you think that serial killers look at murder that way?
I wouldn't say all of them do.
But like the ones that like very deliberately
I mean,
do
there's
the same thing, and like they have their trophies, and like, do you think that serial killers look at it that way as
Sure,
as an
I
art
think-
and a way to express themselves?
well, I think in a really like egotistical way.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's like a very like this is gonna be. I'm just so unique and different in the way what I'm doing here. I'm imposing myself.
It's pretentious.
On others.
Murder's pretentious.
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing?
Or it's just barbaric.
Murder.
It could go either way.
That's true. Yeah, there's either like a burst of passion and you're not even thinking, or you're just thinking way too much. You're way too in your head. You're not connected to others. And then you're just trying to make it into something that's like a statement almost, but it's just like, I don't know.
It's just pretentious.
Yeah.
Murder's pretentious. It came to a good conclusion here.
Interesting.
I don't know, that thought just came across my mind. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if
All
you
is
guys,
vanity.
I don't know if
vanity,
you've
vanity.
watched the show Hannibal on Netflix.
I heard it was good, but I haven't watched it.
But that show kind of glorifies murder in an artistic way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
like,
a lot of American media.
well,
does.
I mean, hell, a lot
Tarantino.
of exactly. A lot
Yeah.
of filmmakers
Yeah.
and like horror movie directors. They glorify murder in an artistic way,
yeah,
which we love watching. So
of course, yeah.
Sometimes I think, but sometimes too, it's like, and this is like why horror movies and as a genre, horror film is so unique, is because it can either be like that, excessive glorification of murder, or it can be like a glorification of virtue. Because in some ways, it's like one of the last genres that really has like, just virtuous characters that have to overcome something evil with the virtue. You know,
oh, like something evil within themselves.
within themselves or in the world. So like you have a lot of you'll have like a character that struggles with something, but and that kind of makes them a target for the evil, but then they kind of use that to overcome. It's kind of hard to come up with an example though, because I've seen too many horror films. I don't know, I've seen too many.
Right.
But I think you know what I'm talking about. Like you have like Insidious and stuff. You have this like demon in the house, and it's coming in, and you know they have these the main characters have these abilities to go into the astral project and see these spirits, but really it comes from like almost like an ascetic practice of not doing it that helps them overcome.
Okay, it's
it.
very natural.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you. How'd you feel about House of the Devil?
House of the Devil, which is this?
That was the one with Are you the babysitter?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the who's the director?
That's
I'm trying to remember.
not Greta
Like
Gerwig.
Gerwig.
That was the actor.
Greta Gerwig.
Ty West.
Ty West.
Oh,
yeah.
West, yeah.
Greta Gerwig was the actor.
That's a good film. You have like evil, you have this like satanic cult, and then you have like this kind of babysitter that overcomes it.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, like just like displays of virtue, like innocence winning over like evil.
Okay.
Um,
So it's more of a like a underlying plot than it is really them glorifying.
yeah.
The
I
murder.
don't
Okay.
think I don't
I
think
see
they're
what you mean.
glorifying the Satanist in that film, or the murderer, the ritual murder. But yeah, that's even another aspect to the ego where it's like, yeah, you have this ritual side to murder. You know, a lot of killers have a ritual aspect. I think Jeffrey Dahmer, he was like, I had read somewhere that he was trying to build like an altar with the remains of some of his victims. And it was going to be like a power altar.
Oh,
that
like
he
some
would-
Goonie shit.
Yeah, that he would sit in front of, and he thought he was getting like spiritual power from
Wow, that's
killing
not
these
where I
people.
was going with that.
Yeah,
Like
but
them
it's
playing the
just-
skull
Goonies.
organ.
Yeah.
Boom, they
That's so
fall through the
good,
floor.
dude.
yeah.
The organ's Sorry.
so
underrated. The organ is so underrated.
It's so like emotional too.
Dude, it is.
When you feel an organ coming in,
powerful.
an organ.
An organ.
I don't know. It kind of like a violin is kind of like that. Piano's like that. Like it just brings in like this different aspect to the music. You know.
Yeah, for sure. I actually had a list of underrated instruments, and the organ was on there.
I think it should be.
The banjo was also on there.
It should be.
I mean, it
Oh,
was
yeah.
this list was specifically rock and roll,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like if you're listening to bluegrass, you're like, what the hell? That's not
I
underrated.
feel like
That's in
har-
every
I
song.
feel like the harp is pretty underrated.
The harp, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mandolin.
The mandolin.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
See
yeah.
that?
Very beautiful. Very
Yeah.
beautiful. Melodic. So,
Yeah.
not methodic.
Yeah.
But overrated, just like a guitar,
Think so?
maybe electric guitar.
Think so? It's
Yeah.
overrated.
Yeah, probably.
I'm gonna disagree with that. It's
Probably
always.
just rated.
I think it's rated.
Just rated.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if
think
we're
it's
talking about
rated.
rock music, it's like
What's
necessary. It's like a
overrated?
pre.
I think it's necessary in jazz. I think it's necessary in like a lot of
What's
music.
overrated?
It might be the most
vocals. Vocals might be overrated.
vocals is, for me is the most overrated. I don't need vocals.
But it's not. It's
Well,
not the
yeah.
vocals. I feel like that resonates with people so much more as it is the words.
I just look at music different than people. Honestly, like I look at it on a more technical level.
Quirky.
I hate to be that guy,
Be that guy.
but like I can't. It's kind of weird because like I can't listen to a pop song and just be like I know it's catchy, but it like doesn't engage. Like I'm not engaged with that music.
I know
But
what you
whereas if I listen to something like I don't know, just something like with like where I could tell these people have poured their time into. Like
I know what you mean by that. I get that.
You know what I'm saying? Like
you want to see expression
when
like we're talking about.
yes, yes. Like
Not just-
and not to shit on good vocalists because I do love good vocalists, like like a Chris Stapleton and Adele, or Amy Winehouse.
I thought those were three bad examples because those people have very good expression.
Well, I just mean like people who are like I love. That's what I'm saying. I can recognize that, and love
about
that
people
and
like Ariana
appreciate
Grande?
that. I can even appreciate that because
Ed Sheeran.
she's good on a technical level. It's technically sound, but it definitely sounds processed her
Yeah,
music.
That's right.
But
Beyonce or somebody like that.
right. I mean, but there's something to and you could also be like gifted a good voice.
True.
You can take vocal lessons and work on these things, but you could just be honestly just gifted. And I think that that you just hit the lottery or whatever, but I think there is something to be said about someone who, like when Jimi Hendrix picked up a guitar, he might have been a natural talent, but
He didn't have any music theory though.
he had no music theory, which is why I'm like, that dude was a natural talent.
Just like Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, but like these guys put the time in. They sacrificed their life for this instrument to build onto it, and they can express their feelings and how they feel with their playing style through that, and people love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Versus like I think that's kind of it's kind of cool. And like the path they've taken, Eddie Van Halen took a different path than like Jimmy Page, you know,
absolutely.
or Jack White.
Or even those guys took a different path than like Mac Miller, who is
Yeah.
a very glorified musician who just was rapping on the school bus. It's not like nearly as much talent involved. I think Mac Miller is very talented.
He's
but-
raw talent.
His raw talent, but
Yeah.
I don't think the ceiling for skill isn't as high as somebody like Jimmy Page or like Tom Morello, who spent 8 hours a day
I agree
trying
with
to play
that,
the guitar
yeah.
like a DJ.
I agree with that. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, there's something to. That's what I love about music. It's like when I can listen to, when I put like an album on, like when a new band comes out with a new album, I'll play it front to back, start to finish, and each song I'm just like, what catches my attention first? Because like when I listen to Mastodon, it's Brian Daylor's drum intros that just like grab your attention.
Have you always done that? Played the album from start to finish?
I've done it for a long time. Yeah, probably since.
What do you think got you to do that?
Honestly, Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay, so I was gonna say Tool.
Dark Side of the Moon. It was one of the first albums I ever bought, and I was
which is
like,
a
concept album.
concept album, so you have to listen to it.
So you have to listen to it front to back, and I was like, oh, like this.
How the music is meant to be.
This is
listened
how
to.
music is meant to be listened to.
I did the same thing with Tool because that's why they sold their albums only by the CD. They didn't sell it on iTunes or anything
Right,
else because
yep.
they wanted everybody to listen
Bob
to the whole
Seger
album.
was like that for a long
Yeah,
time
that's right.
too. Yeah.
We'll get what pulls you into music. What do you look for in a band or a musician?
So I guess I'll start with music. For me, I think helps like guide my thinking. It's like, especially if I'm sitting down and writing or trying to think about something, or I'm driving and I'm thinking about something, I feel like it gives a kind of like a deeper structure to it, or it resonates with it. It adds to it. And so that's why I feel like with instrumental music, like you're talking about, it's really useful because it's almost even like
Sets a mood, sets a tone.
it's just like
Sets a
more
feel.
subjective too.
Yeah.
Like you have that. You don't have like the structure of the lyrics telling you what to think
Yeah.
in a way. So it's like you can just kind of apply yourself more to it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
That's really
He's thinking like a
interesting.
director right now.
He is.
That's how Quentin says he starts his movies. He like goes into his library of nothing but vinyls or whatever, and starts playing music. And once he sets the intro off of like, this Western song that is on this one track of
The way
whatever,
it makes him feel.
and he's like, way it makes him feel. He's like, oh, I can see this guy, walking down with like, a pistol on his hip or whatever in like the
That's a-
desert or something, and then he comes up with Django.
That's a really good way to put it, Jeremiah, is that like songs with lyrics, they have guidelines because he's talking about a specific thing, or the singer is talking about a specific thing whenever they sing. But whenever there's no singer, it's just all instrumental. It's a lot more free thinking. That's a good way to put it. I like that. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah. So and I guess there's just like it also depends. Maybe even like what kind of music you like will depend on what you think and how you relate to those thoughts in some way. But I'm not entirely sure. It also might depend on like how you grow up and stuff.
The nostalgia, yeah, I think that's I feel a lot of that lately.
So for me, I mean, I like a lot of new wave. I like a lot of 80s music. I like classic rock. As we talked about earlier, the Smiths, Depeche Mode.
I was about to say, do you like Depeche Mode?
Oh, I love Depeche
Yeah,
Mode.
I was.
It's kind of dark.
felt
It's
it.
kind of dark, but it's
That's-
also
That's why I asked him
melodic.
if he liked Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's
a fair question.
Yeah,
Dark
Trent
but
Reznor.
light.
Yeah, dark but light.
Yeah.
Dark but like melodic
Mm-hmm.
versus like Nine Inch Nails is more dark but grungy. Like it's that new metal, but it's synth wave.
I'm gonna show you a metal band.
A metal band?
I don't think you're gonna like it, but I think it's a shot.
Do you want to tell me the name and I'll write it down?
Yes,
I have
Death
a Google
Heaven.
Doc open. What's it
Oh
called?
wow, that's I don't think that's that far off.
I don't think it is either.
I'm okay
You say
with
Death Heaven?
You showed Gabby Death Heaven. She was like, I get it.
I showed
And
her
I was,
that.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Spell that right?
Yeah, you should Gabby
Yeah.
that. If you didn't know,
I think it's all one. Or Deaf. Sorry, Deaf. DEF. Heaven.
DEAF.
DEF. Yeah.
AF.
No,
It's AF.
it's DEF.
Is it?
Yeah, I think.
I think it's AF. Yeah, it's DEAF.
DEAF. Yeah, sorry. I thought you said DAF.
No, DEAF.
Yeah, sorry. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you would really, really enjoy them. I think.
Like a new wave or something? Synth wave?
Not
It's-
exactly.
it's
New
like,
Order? Love New Order?
It's shoegaze.
I like shoegaze.
Is shoegaze?
But
My
heavy
Bloody
metal.
Valentine is kind of like, pretty sure they're shoegaze.
My Bloody Valentine.
You never
Is
heard
that a
of this?
band?
It's a shoegaze kind of.
I don't think I've ever listened to them.
Oh,
Let's
wow.
look it up.
Yeah.
We'll listen to it whenever we take a break at some point.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, they're like a shoegaze over like
I was
Black-
thinking about the 1981 horror film.
They're-
Slow dive.
kind of like a slow
Like
dive
slow dive.
shoegaze, but it's also like progressive black metal.
Progressive
Yeah.
black metal. Oh, okay.
Like the
that's actually pretty
vocals,
good.
like it's very like very beautiful band. Honestly,
Yeah,
their
absolutely.
music is like very, very like you can like kind of dream a little bit. You feel like you're in a dream when you listen to them.
I feel like that's how shoegaze definitely is.
Yeah, it feels like you're kind of dreaming in this like this space realm or whatever, and then you add
Beach
in
House. Beach House is kind of. Do you know Beach House?
Mm-mm.
Beach House sounds like a metal band.
Yeah,
It's not a. Y'all don't know Beach House?
Beach
It's
House
pretty
sounds like a
popular.
metal band. Seems like a quirky name for a metal.
yeah. I mean, Death Heaven's one of their albums is called Sunbather, so Beach House, Sunbather.
Yeah, maybe
Hey.
that's where I tied that to.
See if I can spell this right. I'm actually real
Beach
cool.
House Songs,
Yeah.
a 2004 band, Space Song.
Oh, I see. there's
Depression
space.
Cherry. That's an interesting name for an album.
Yeah, Beach House is really good. I like some shoegaze, and I
Yeah.
think Beach House would fit right into the shoegaze.
Like I said, the voice is it's a black metal voice, so it's
Mhm.
got like
it's nothing but screaming.
yeah, but it fits and melds well because it's not like they don't turn the vocals
hear the
up to where
words.
you're like in your face, like and like all like and like ruining the song. It's really more of the music
It's
is
in the
turned
middle.
up
That's
and the
accurate.
vocals are kind of turned down a little bit, and it really just he kind of uses his voice as an instrument.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not gonna know a single word he says.
Yeah.
And I think what makes it so beautiful is that like you hear that screaming voice, but it's like you said, it gives you that freedom. It's not setting guidelines for what you need to think
Yeah.
about when you listen to the song because you don't know what he's saying.
You don't,
So it feels like an instrumental, but it's still very heavy.
and the lyrics are very like poetic. They're very
give us an example. Well, you have to do the voice.
oh the oh man, I don't know if I could. Yeah.
It's very.
We'll listen to it after the
yeah,
break.
I can't do it. I'm terrible.
So I guess we were talking about art and stuff, and one of the things that I thought about was this, like Andrei Tarkovsky, which is one of my favorite directors.
Now, what did he direct, if you don't mind me asking?
So he did. He's Russian, so he did like Soviet Russian films.
Yeah.
But he did Solaris,
Okay.
Stalker, Andrei Rublev, Nostalgia, like a bunch of just kind of like 80s, 70s Soviet era films. But here's a quote of his that I want to see what y'all think about this. So he
Okay.
says, the allotted function of art is not, as is often assumed, to put across ideas, to propagate thoughts, to serve as an example. The aim of art is to prepare a person for death, to plow and harrow his soul, rendering it capable of turning to good.
I like preparing them for death. That's
pretty
that's
metal.
dark.
Yeah,
That's
it's
pretty
dark.
metal.
Yeah.
That's very dark.
It's just kind of like it keeps your mind off of death. It's inevitable, I guess. Like,
Mhm.
you know it's coming, so to lay it easy on you when it comes, here's art.
Yeah, like it's
To
not
kind
to-
of like take your mind off it a little bit because it's coming. But isn't that like everything in the world, though?
Mhm.
Like everything, like this podcast has taken our mind off of death
Yeah. Until now.
until now. Here we are.
Hey guys, think about death.
Yeah, think about
Think about
dying
death.
today.
death, dying.
Yeah, I like that, man.
Well, like Plato he wrote a book, like ancient Greek philosopher. He wrote a book called I think it's pronounced like the Phaedo or the Phaedo, and the whole thing is it's about death and about how, like, basically what a philosopher is someone who prepares for death, is someone who thinks about things to prepare for death and dying.
Dude, I remember when I first found out. I might have talked about this on the show previously, but when I found out that people die.
Yeah, we talked about this 2 weeks ago.
Was it 2 weeks ago?
I think so. I know one of the descriptions I put that we got emotional.
Yeah, when I thought about death, it's just when I first found out, something was off. Like, even I was sad for like a while. I was like,
I hate to laugh at that.
what the fuck? I was like a kid. I'm like, what the fuck?
People die?
People die.
When I found out about death, I was
Like-
sad for a while. That's some Theo Von shit.
For real though.
Fuck, dude.
Like, I went home like, it doesn't matter. You're gonna die. We're all gonna die.
Jesus.
Well, the scariest thought
It
is
just was like a harsh. Sorry, it was like a harsh reality.
I would say, like, one of the scariest things though to think is, like, do people come back? Or do
I
they
think it's
never
fun.
die?
I think it's fun to think about.
Or do you, if you lose, if you just actually never die, if you just go somewhere else or something. But
You just like are born. You just come out the womb. Wouldn't that be something?
But yeah, when people die, I don't know if I ever really had a moment like that where it was just kind of like, oh man, people die.
Yeah, it was a weird feeling. And then, like, what happens afterwards? It's like what if you just lived the fucking same life over and over again? That's what deja vu is.
Well, the great thing is that's what makes life so beautiful, is that we don't know.
We don't know.
So we can't live it as if I'll
Yeah.
be born again. I'll come back.
I know. But there's like some things that make you wonder, like, I don't know, maybe I'm more spiritual than religious, but yeah, there's like as you get older, deja vu seems to get less and less freaking. Like, what is deja vu anyways? Like, could there be parallel universes? Like, we really, I don't know. It just seems like it opens the mind to a lot of things. Like, has civilization in other worlds? We know there's thousands and unlimited amount of universes. Who's to say someone isn't like way far more advanced than we are, and we're in the Matrix right now? I can't, like, as goofy as that sounds, to sit here and
simulation theory.
Yeah, to sit here and think that, like, we are the most advanced civilization out there seems a little naive. Does it not? Because there's endless, right?
I'm okay with that thought.
So I guess part of what, like,
and we see how fast, like, we're progressing now. I mean, video games are not that far off from, like, someone could have figured it out over time.
it's like a simulation of what? That's like my question.
I don't know.
Is,
I don't know.
So a simulation of reality? Then at that point, do we really even need the theory that it's a simulation? So, like, I guess with video games, to draw an analogy between us and a video game,
To get away from, I guess, what reality really is. I don't know. You never can tell what's, like, on the other side if it was to be true.
Right.
Not saying I believe that, but, let's put the little tinfoil hat on or whatever for a little bit, and
sure.
let's talk. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
So if we were living in a simulation, yeah, that's my first question. A simulation of what? Because if it's just of reality, then is it even a simulation at that point? Or why not just say we're living in reality? But if it's like, if we're saying that we're in a matrix, reality is an illusion, right? Everything is like fake. Then it would be impossible to like know. It would be impossible to even say that, because it's like that statement itself is part of the illusion. Like,
It's Inception.
yeah. So
An
it's like,
illusion
Yeah,
within the
what if they
illusion.
just plugged into this video game for wherever they're at, and this takes them back to, like, a time where, I mean, they're obviously way more advanced than us. They could be living in, a million years ahead of us. They plugged us in just to get a taste of the time period.
I kind of want to point out a funny correlation here, but I feel like you didn't start really thinking this deep into this kind of thing, or at least we never talked about it until you watched Rick and Morty.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I know this might not be.
Yeah, that's strange.
This might not have a correlation.
I never think about Rick and Morty.
But think
That's so
about Rick
funny.
and Morty. I had the episode where Rick goes into the video game and he lives an entire
Oh,
lifetime.
the Roy. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good fucking
And then
episode.
there's also the episode where he has the simulation or he has a whole other universe inside of a box
so
that
funny.
powers his battery for his
Yeah.
car.
mm-hmm.
And he's conditioned them to think that everything they do appeases the God, which is him. He's God. It appeases God where and so they have to constantly work, and they're constantly using like motorized like pedaling, and, like doing stuff like that to motorize his car. And it's like that is that have you seen those episodes? That correlates exactly to what you just said.
It definitely does. But no, this idea started for me. It's funny because I always kind of reference like we could be powering somebody's dildo right now.
Yeah.
And, but always, what really made that click for me was The Matrix.
The movie.
The movie. Matrix. Like when that movie came out, it was like, whoa, this is kind of wild.
What if?
What if?
Well, you know, The Matrix was created by, I think it was two people who are, I believe, both trans, and the red pill in the movie is actually like a reference to the hormone replacement pill. So The Matrix, I don't know if they meant this like intentionally, and like what they're writing is just kind of like The Matrix is kind of like the way that we've viewed gender in a way, and the red pill is the way to escape it, transition or something like that. So.
I think people have kind of applied more meaning to that in today's time.
Yeah.
It seems than like what they were going for then.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Well, it's also, I think some of it too is kind of just like a
So Lana and Lily Wachowski, both sisters, both trans women.
Mm-hmm.
So you are accurate on that part.
Okay.
And the pill, the pill for transitioning, at least back when they made The Matrix, was red. Like it's a red pill.
Really?
Yeah. So are you red pilled? I don't know.
Yeah,
wow, I'm taking the red pill.
Yeah, red pill. Yeah, I'm taking the red pill.
That's interesting.
Red pilled on the red pill. So yeah, it's a reference to the hormone replacement pill that
1999. They were ahead of their time.
Way ahead.
It's such a great. I think it's a film that everybody has to watch at least once in their life. The Matrix.
I think that's 100% accurate.
Yeah, and I think it gets your mind working. You know, it's like whoa.
Yeah,
it's a little wild, you know. And plus, you have Keanu Reeves, this fucking likable, so likable.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves is awesome.
You know, it might not be the best actor.
Ted,
We all know that.
On, man.
Yeah, Speed.
Ted, yeah.
Like, there's so many great films.
Point
Break.
Yeah, Point Break.
He shoots him in the sky.
Point Break is a good fucking movie. It's cheesy as hell. I get it, but I like it. It's a guilty pleasure. You know, I like that.
That's fair.
But The Matrix, I feel like it's really probably like just a modern technological representation of like Plato's allegory of the cave. Have you heard of this?
No.
This is like a philosophical concept that they would use in ancient times to kind of like get people into thinking about things. But the way it works is you basically have a group of people who are chained up to a wall all their lives from like birth to death, and the only thing they see is across from them is like a bunch of shadows on the opposite wall. So that's all they ever know, is these shadows projected. In fact, I just pulled it up so I can read this. So the people watch shadows projected on the walls from objects passing in front of a fire behind them. So there's a fire behind them, and there's people passing it, and the shadows are projected onto the wall from these people passing it. And that's all they know. The shadows are the prisoner's reality. That's all they know. But they're not accurate representations of the real world, you know, because these people are prisoners. They don't see the fire. They don't see the people walking in front of it. But the shadows represent the fragment of reality that they can see with their senses. But with this cave, with the allegory of the cave, there's this idea that one of the prisoners getting free and going up and then, you know, getting out of the cave and seeing the real world. And that's kind of like what, like the earliest articulations of what a philosopher was this person who sees the phantasms, who sees the Matrix, gets out of the Matrix, comes up, and then comes back and then tells them, like, hey, there's a whole other world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine what that feeling? Do you ever wonder what it's like?
I knew it was going to be good to have you on this.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Cheers.
I was excited about it when you told me. And, you know, we knew we would have you on at some point if you were up for it.
I do want to point out
Plato with me.
He has great dialogues of Plato.
I was looking at I was actually looking at the Phaedo because that's what I was reading recently. But yeah, he says, real philosophers wish to die.
That's it.
Well, yeah, that's just a rant. I actually took that out of context, but it's like someone kind of making
taking
fun
it out of
this
context
person's-
might be
it's hilarious.
Real philosophers wish to die.
It's hilarious. Wow. Is it?
So I think this is Socrates right here saying, yeah, those who tackle philosophy aright are simply and solely practicing dying, practicing death all the time, but no one sees it.
How do you figure? Or what do you think he meant by they're practicing death? And I kind of want to ask this question whenever you mentioned the Tarkovsky quote as well, because I thought those two go hand in hand.
So, like, I guess what he's talking about there is like you have a soul. The way he would look at it is you have a soul, like kind of like this higher category outside the body, which helps you look at things from outside your body. So like reasoning, anytime math, how do you know numbers exist? You've never seen one.
Okay.
These are like transcendental categories.
Sure.
That we use. Numbers aren't actually physically real. It's just something we kind of
created.
Go by.
But they're more real than reality in a way. 2 + 2 always equals 4.
Yeah.
Like no matter what. You
ever heard of fish?
Fish.
2 + 2 = fish.
2 + 2 No. But he's kind of saying, like, the prisoners in the cave, right? They're trapped in their body. They're just stuck with what their senses show them. So you have to, like, think. You have to use you have to use your mind. You have to use your soul to get outside and look at reality.
They don't know what is.
From a more pure perspective.
Yeah.
From a more
It's a weird place to enter.
Yeah, a less tainted point of view.
It's a weird place to enter.
The reason dying is so integral to philosophy and even Christianity in a way, because the whole point of Christianity is like to die without dying. But like with the philosopher, it's to shut off your senses in a way. Stop looking at reality just with your eyes, your ears, your body, and use your soul. Look at reality at a pure, or metaphysically. I mean, that's no one really uses that term anymore, metaphysic or metaphysically, because metaphysics is basically dead, and this is kind of like a problem of like American culture and American identity, where things are just so inherently materialistic. You only look at things as like matter. It's like there's nothing outside of it, beyond it. It's just like there's matter. But we keep using these concepts that are more than material, like personhood. Like you have this idea of like reason and personhood. You can't think without those two things, but you can't see them.
Right.
These are things you can't.
Sure.
So it's But yeah, so he's basically like, it's like an invitation. The philosopher thinks of death because you have to invite yourself to think outside your body and outside the world. You have to kind of die in a way, like a little death, inside yourself to really get a look at things. And I think that's kind of what you sort of see in the Matrix, right? He what happens? Doesn't he? I can't remember what happens in the end. Doesn't he like die?
I think so. I haven't watched it since
Spoilers.
Spoilers for the 1999 film. 24 years ago, man. Come on. I think I get what you mean by that. And I think like a lot of times people like me and Shawn refer to experience a lot on the podcast. Mm-hmm. Like talking about how different experiences, like he talked about when he first realized, he realized people died.
People
die? It made me sad for a long time. But that's like him dying on his own, like that part of him died.
That
small part of his childhood died.
I was like, so I'm gonna go home to someone who's gonna be dead soon. I mean,
Soon.
time. You're young. You don't know what time is.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't know how you think that 1 year is eternity. Back when you're in first grade,
or like when you fall out of love with a person, like that part of you dies.
The first heartbreak.
That part of you dies, or like when you find out Santa Claus isn't real. That part of you dies.
Yeah. Do you tell your kids? Do you lie to your fucking kids and tell them Santa Claus is real just to break their hearts in 7 years?
I feel like that alludes to the Matrix in a way, is that these kids are living something completely different that isn't real.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and then they die to live a new life.
Two things I'll say. Yeah, one, Santa Claus isn't like a man going around with reindeers in a car driving presents, but he is real.
Oh, okay.
It's the spirit. It's the season of
guess what, baby? It's Christmas time, so I got the celebration seasonal
Christmas
IPA
time in the city.
Santa though, I'm not kidding. He actually is real, but he's dead. But he's Santa
dead,
Claus,
but he was real.
Santa Claus it's like Dutch for Saint Nicholas, which was Saint Nick the Wonder
Old
Worker.
Saint Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
12-inch.
Up on the housetop. Click.
What's that song say?
With 12-inch saw.
With his 12-inch sleigh.
Dang, he's got like what are they, shoes?
Little shoestrings.
Oh, you ready for a piss break?
I do have to piss.
Yeah.
Do you want to finish that thought about Saint Nick?
Oh, I was just saying Santa. He's real in a way. He was. It's based on a real person, Saint Nicholas.
Have you ever heard of what is it? The Holy Cross and the so it ties mushrooms and psychedelics to Christmas.
Let's come back to this.
Yes.
Let's come back to this. I'm gonna write that down. We'll be back, guys.
We'll be back, guys.
Oh man, he's wanting to the mic. What's up? Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Good to be here, as it always is.
It always is.
Yeah.
As it always is.
What was it?
The pine trees and the Saint Nick and his 12-inch sleigh.
Psychedelics, the red.
Damn, I looked it up a minute ago. Something in the Holy Cross. Mushrooms in the Holy Cross, I think is the name of it.
That's not it. But you said it earlier, and I know it wasn't it, but
It's sacred mushroom and the cross.
okay, sacred mushroom
Yeah.
and the cross.
That correlates
this?
psychedelics to Christmas.
I've
So
heard a lot
what
of
about
things
it?
like this. I've heard a lot of.
I haven't read it. I just know that book exists. Is what I was trying to say.
So
That the like the red mushrooms that are very traditional for psychedelics.
Yeah, like
They used to grow up
like
under
Mario.
Yes, exactly. They used to grow up under the pine trees, which is portrayed as the Christmas tree.
Sure.
And reindeer apparently really craved these mushrooms,
Oh yeah.
or deer did, and they would go and like eat those, and that represents them flying in the sky because they're tripping balls.
Oh.
And the red mushrooms represent presents under the tree,
Okay.
with like just red presents. I mean, red,
Yeah.
green. That's
Yeah, I
just
got you.
apparently. So that's all I know about it. But it seems like there could be something there. It seems kind of interesting, right?
Okay, where does Saint Nick come in?
Christmas.
But how is
But I don't know. I haven't read the book. I
like,
don't.
how does Saint Nick tie into and Christmas tie into the pine tree mushroom?
Because
the
we
bottle?
have a pine tree in our living room.
Why do we put the pine tree in the living room?
I-
Why? Like what?
I mean, that's
tied the
just
pine
Christmas.
Tree?
I don't know. You have to read
to
the
Christmas.
book. That's what I'm saying.
Do you know anything
have to
about
read
this?
the book.
about the tree in particular.
Yeah.
I'm kind
Christmas
of
is
uncertain.
correlated to the mushrooms, the psychedelics.
So, I think there's some people that can interpret things in a way that they see correlations that aren't necessarily completely causal. Correlation doesn't equal causation. That's like the big thing you learn when you're learning like how to research stuff at university, right? It's like one of the first things. Stats 101, correlation doesn't equal causation. But I think another thing too is like when you have evidence for things, there's a lot of theories that go behind it that there's not necessarily evidence for themselves. So you have a lot of people today, especially today, post New Age people who are really into psychedelics and psychedelia, and they reinterpret historical events with their experience in that realm. So I'm not saying it's entirely
To
wrong.
kind of find some kind
Yeah.
of like meaning or kind of connection to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they're
So-
seeing it through that lens. I
Mhm.
see what you're saying.
They're like I have to say like they're adding meaning to it that like basically like
Yeah.
early Christians themselves wouldn't have had.
And maybe that's what it is.
Because there's a whole group of people like there are like psychedelic Christians, that they believe like
Psychedelic Christians. That's like rock and roll Jesus.
yeah, I mean it's
Sounds like a Kid Rock album.
but there's like
Psychedelic Christian. Man, I was you got there faster than me, but I was about to get there.
I got there fast.
Yeah, he was like, "That's for rock and roll
Psychedelic
Jesus." That sounds like
Christians.
some
but
Kid
I've heard
Rock
of some.
shit.
I mean, not just like with that mushroom in Christmas, but I've even
I'm
heard something.
kid.
In the Old Testament, when they're like wandering in the desert, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the story, but in Exodus, when they're leaving Egypt and they're wandering in the desert, I've heard some of these people say like
Moses in the burning bush.
that partly that, but also like the manna from heaven that falls down for them to feed and eat because they're in a desert, And so that's one of the miracles that's performed is that there's this like manna that falls from heaven. Now in my tradition, this is like a type of the Eucharist. So
What
this
is your tradition?
So I'm an Orthodox Christian. It's the way we view it is like our church was established by Christ and the apostles at Pentecost, and that we haven't changed anything. Like we're in complete continuity with the apostles since they founded the church. But the psychedelic group, these are like probably newer people who have added things to the tradition or to the way that they interpret the faith. Usually post-Reformation, because Catholics definitely wouldn't have been, on shrooms and stuff. But
just having sex with underage people.
yeah, but I mean, there's a lot to that as well, because it's like there's a lot. I'm not gonna. So my church, we would view we describe ourselves as Catholic. I mean, Catholic just means universal.
If I was to be religious, I'd be Catholic.
Because I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, you have the ritual, you have the beauty, you have this reverence.
Yeah.
But Orthodox, like we view ourselves as Catholic. I guess like we would view ourselves as like older Catholics. So it's like before they started saying that the Bishop of Rome in particular had authority over all of the other bishops. The Pope is what I'm talking about. The Bishop of Rome. But the
isn't that a little strange though? Like a man sits up there with like a wizard robe and like a baton, and
isn't it kind of
people
cool though?
I mean, a little bit of it is.
It's a good argument.
Badass. It's
But
kind of
like,
badass.
isn't it a little strange that like he's kind of glorified in like this odd way
It
that
is.
like represents something that he's just like the rest of us. And why are we glorifying this guy because he was like somehow has ties to get this position?
I feel like any question that I'm going to have is because of ignorance.
True. I want most questions. That'd be like every question you could ever ask. It'd be like,
Well,
yeah,
that's a good
fair.
point.
That's fair.
Yeah. I
but
mean,
yeah, I guess you could say like your question is
Yeah.
gonna be less qualified than
Yeah,
another
exactly.
question. So like,
Right.
yeah, true.
Like, I'm going to be like, oh, why do we even listen to this guy?
But I feel like okay, so the way Catholics view, and we're getting kind of
That's
sidetracked
every
with the
question.
we're getting kind of sidetracked with the psychedelic stuff. But yeah, so there are like
That's
there
fair.
are people that are into psychedelia and they reinterpret some of these events. Now I would be extremely careful about that because I mean, if you're ever here using things in the world to have spiritual experiences, the whole point of Christianity isn't to just like be gullible and just buy anything like someone tells you. It's actually like a radical skepticism of reality and of things outside of you. It's what is this person saying, and are they a reliable authority for what they're saying? And most of the time we would say, no, it's probably demonic. That's why we try to separate ourselves from the world, because it's, the world is under the dominion of the prince of darkness. It's, it's Satan basically. But but with the Catholics, I know they view him as like, it's like a vicar of Christ. So basically it's like, okay, how do we interpret our faith? How are we going to make decisions? How do we decide, is Christ a man or is he God? Or is he both? Who tells us how to interpret the scripture? Who tells us how to interpret what we're told? In Catholicism, it's the Pope. The Pope tells you, like, okay, this is what.
Okay, that makes sense. That was
This is
a good way to wrap everything up.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah, it was.
For a second, I was
But think about the
drifting.
Constitution. Okay,
No,
so
I
think
can't.
about
You
like
gotta do that,
think
yeah.
about like in America, right? You have the Constitution.
right.
Who interprets the Constitution? The judges, of the
Right,
Supreme
okay.
Court.
Yeah.
But imagine you only have one judge. That's the Pope.
Okay. That's a good analogy.
Seems a little strange from the outside
That
looking
doesn't
in, though.
seem-
So in the
Why
Orthodox,
is the Pope the Pope?
So part of that is just like I get like again, I'm viewing it from the lens of my tradition.
Sure.
So
Right,
the
absolutely.
Pope used to be in communion with my church. Like he used to be one bishop among many, and you'd have multiple bishops
Like
that would make
chess.
decisions. Yeah, like
Queen's Gambit reference. Bishop.
but,
Respect.
but you'd have multiple bishops, right, that decide. So, and they didn't just say like, "Hey, we have this authority." It's like it was given to them by the bishop before them, who was given to them by the bishop
So
before
it's
them, all the way to the apostles themselves.
almost monarchical.
Yeah, it's definitely monarchical, but I would say even probably more so in this world monarchical in the Catholicism, because they have the one Pope.
Right.
And Pope, like in Orthodoxy, when the Pope used to be in communion with us, we used to have two popes. So it doesn't mean that you're
Oh,
above
really?
everyone. Yeah, we used to have
Okay.
two of them. Pope was just like an honorary position. It's just like you are kind of more respected than the other ones because you're older. You were founded by a particular apostle that was in some way maybe more vocal about this position. But in the end, it's the way we have it is we have multiple patriarchs, we call them, that they would go to, these bishops, they go to meetings, synods or councils, and they would make decisions. And they would qualify what is heretical, so like what is false teaching, that will harm you if you practice it or follow it, and what is proper teaching, which will, benefit you if you follow it and practice it. So like some of the earliest disputes was like, are images okay in the church?
What do you mean by images? Like
Any image. Can
Any
you
image.
draw Christ? Is it okay to, because, in the Old Testament it says like, you can't have any graven images. You can't have images of things like that. It's against the law.
So, like anything that looks like Christ or anything that represents it, not represents it, but like in a, like you said, a picture form, I guess.
Something like that. So that was the
drawing a
dispute.
skull, like even like statues.
So Christ is God. We can't draw God, so can we draw Christ?
Yeah.
Now for us, it's like yes, we can. We
Because
can.
And that was
he was
kind
a
of
person.
so like
Yeah.
drawing Christ, could be considered like blasphemy,
Yeah, 'cause we don't draw the Father,
right?
you know. But I mean, that's like we're in like Islam. They don't draw like any of it.
Yeah.
And so if you go to an Islamic country, the focus of art is highly on like calligraphy and written words. You know, that's
Okay.
why when you look at Islamic writing, it's just like, I can't tell what this says, but it's beautiful. It's like really well written and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's because they orient all of their like artistic impulse into like this one thing because they can't express it any other way. They might have music and such, but they can't, artistically represent it in any other way. But for us, icons, it doesn't make sense really to get rid of icons, in one way, because like, aren't we all made in the image of God? Like, aren't we all images of?
That's a good point.
So like, that's kind of.
That's a good point.
I mean, I think that's part of the point against what we call the iconoclast, image breakers. These are people that were against the images. But yeah, that's just an example of a controversy. And then you have these people who are authorities. They get together, and then they decide, okay, what are we gonna do here? Now in Catholicism, it's just the Pope that would make that decision.
I think it'd be a really good podcast once we get this fourth chair. And not to this is breaking news for the listeners, but we're looking at getting another chair.
Yeah, so we can have two guests.
Yeah,
at
and
the
I
same
think
time.
it'd be really
Have
good.
a Catholic person over here discussing.
Well, just to have our buddy Brent, a crab man,
Crabman,
who
shout
was a preacher and now is an atheist,
oh wow.
on the podcast. He dedicated his entire life to religion and really bought in, and then slowly started turning the other way, and it's kind of strange because you don't really see anybody who's taken that path that he's taken.
Yeah.
So it's I think it'd be very interesting to have.
And he was a Calvinist preacher.
And that'll do it to you. Yeah. No, I'm just.
That'll
Sorry.
that'll do it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. No, I think he would probably laugh at
I
that.
think it's gonna be
honestly.
funny.
He would probably laugh at
He's
that.
going to laugh at that.
Yeah.
He's going to listen to this podcast.
So
and laugh at that,
it would be really interesting to have him on here with you and kind of go
Mhm.
down that rabbit hole of ideas between the two of you, because you seem very passionate about it, and I think
Yeah.
so does he.
That
So.
was I would also like to qualify. Like, Calvinism isn't something I struggled with. I was raised non-denominational. I was raised going to a mega church. I was raised going to New Spring. Y'all should know this.
Yeah.
It is a mega church.
It's a mega church.
Come in, they got the
non-denom-
rock band. They got the good-looking front man playing singing. He's got a good voice.
Skillet.
He dates like the hottest girl there that's like in the whatever.
And she's also 17.
Yeah, yeah,
His shirt's like half torn.
yeah.
It's just like,
He's like the cool guy, but he like seems to soft, like
He's got really tight
vulnerable Christian music.
he's got an accent for no reason.
Yeah,
pants. Really tight
Yeah,
pants. The
yeah.
cuts in the knees.
yeah.
And you can't see nothing.
You got some like young like
You can see his bulge.
Duke like youth minister coming out with like he's got the headset,
Oh, the
but it's, like,
Bluetooth piece.
the Bluetooth piece of like the one wire that comes down, and he's like a very high energy.
Mhm.
They come out to mute the music, and they're fucking
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
get it.
but
Was that
it's-
accurate?
Yeah, 100%. But it's like it's very it's hard to
I never went to New
describe.
Spring. I knew they had a fuse. They called it fuse.
I
and
went to
was
that as well,
associated
yeah.
to the drink. I didn't know.
It's for me, like my experience, it wasn't like in that context. It wasn't spiritual or religious. It was just kind of sentimental and emotional. Very
Okay.
almost kind of like
Perspective
Not
is
very
everything, man.
Maybe
Right.
even like even just like an experience more than it was spiritual.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, it was very, in some ways, just kind of superficial. I think
thought that's
in
probably
comparison
the best
to what I
word
have,
to use.
I think in comparison to like what I am into now, that would almost seem like counterfeit.
That makes sense.
So
That makes sense. I thought, and that's where we've been very critical on not Christianity as a whole, but specifically that group of people.
yeah,
I think counterfeit is the word that we oftentimes don't use, but we imply.
There's a lot of good that comes through religion.
There is, but we always talk about the people that act like they're holier than thou because they do go to church, and they act like they can do no wrong just because they're a Christian.
Yeah.
And that's normally the people that we refer to. hypocritical.
Yeah.
Is the word we tend to use.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a dark side of religion too that people that are religious tend to ignore. You know, that's the like you're alluding to the keeping up with the Joneses, the we're better than you, the like because everyone's trying to get better. We're all trying to get better as human beings. I feel like I think that we all should be, but when you like listen to someone preach to you on Sunday and you go out into civilization and see someone who isn't in that line of like I'm trying to do better, I'm going to church, and they look down upon those people because they're not where they are, and they feel the need to preach to those people to get them to where they are. They have some kind of like mentoring complex. I don't know what it is, but they tend to like want to push their ideologies on other people. When people come from different walks of life, I think is a little it's a little much for some people.
Yeah, I think
and to sit there and say like, it's easy for people to sit back and judge. I feel like, and I think a lot of them do.
For sure, but also it's easy for us to sit back and judge.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
I mean, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, we are doing it right
but
now.
I'm not religious.
But I think that's because of, like you said, it feels counterfeit. It feels superficial in those
100%.
type of churches, and that's mostly what we are surrounded with. I mean, that's like the most popular thing, and so that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast, because it's very refreshing to have a person who
thinks for themselves.
Thinks for yourself.
Yeah,
but, and like you're obviously you're very in touch with who you are.
Yeah,
but you are a religious person, and you're very disciplined.
Yeah,
to your
I
religion.
appreciate that.
Anything that like you argue for, and like me and you have had arguments where like you'll say some things that I don't agree with, and I'll try to argue it, and it'll be like, well, doesn't that go against your religion? And you go, no, actually, you don't understand my religion, and you'll explain exactly how it dials directly to your religion. I'm like, oh man, I'm fighting an uphill battle here, and I'll just stop arguing.
But it's, so I guess like I want to explain too, like I didn't just go from one Christian group to another. There was a period in my life where I was sort of into, I guess basically like the occult. I was basically into sort of hermeticism and esoteric
magic.
Sort of magic. And I never got into practicing magic or anything like that, but I was certainly into. I was getting away, and I was getting into more new age spiritistic type stuff.
That's where the synth wave. The love for synth.
You seem like a tarot card kind of guy.
I would have been. If I would, and that's actually.
If you meet the right chick and she's into that shit, you're gonna be all up in that shit.
That used to actually
cars, baby.
Get your dick wet.
Get
the whole of the world.
Baby.
I'm pretty sure tarot cards like came from like a Catholic practice.
It seems, yeah.
I'm pretty sure
because
it came from like I think they would put saints on cards.
Yeah, I could see the
New Orleans.
Ooh, shout out.
Sorry.
But yeah, so like I was getting into the occult, and part of that was just like my interest in like philosophy and psychology. I was into Carl Jung and Nietzsche, and I was moving into
like Marcus Aurelius.
Marcus Aurelius. I never really got into like Stoicism.
Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at with philosophy right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very like kind of like practical things you could use. For me, it was more of just like I need to figure out how I think.
Okay.
So that was kind of like I need to figure out like and I think that's like why I was into psychoanalysis, because these were people that didn't just take reason as like this thing that you can just use however you want. And it's just like, oh, just reason is the best thing. They're like skeptical of reason itself. It's like
okay.
Like people today, they make fun of people that are superstitious, or at least a lot of people do, like secular people, where it's just like, oh, you're superstitious, like that's kind of weird. But for me, it was like you're not superstitious about your own reason. Like your own mind, So it's like for me, it's I mean, think about like we were talking about the cave, all these phantasms on the wall. And it's just like, you're not a little skeptical about like the way you judge itself. How you judge.
That's mostly perception too, though. I mean, the way you see
all those things are tied together.
I mean, like you said, the people that are seeing these shadows don't see the people behind the fire. So that's all perception. I mean, if you were to have a bird's eye view of that cave, you would know that these shadows aren't the phantasms as you're referring to it, and as the people seeing the shadows are referring to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's difficult to like talk about these things, talk about like questioning questions, questioning reason, and then trying to move to a point where it's like, okay, I believe this, I think this, without sounding arrogant at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's because people come from different walks of life, different cultures. I think most people want to dismiss what they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's across the board. That's me and you in DFS on Sunday mornings.
Oh yeah.
That's you and me right now with religion or whatever. People tend to like, that's the right with more progressive ideas. That's the left with more traditional ideas. They tend to like they can't like get there emotionally to like, because they come from different walks of life and different cultures, and those things work. They're all those ideas from those people work for them, but they can't see those ideas from other people working for them because they've never experienced that, so they tend to dismiss it.
Right.
And I think that's what correlates to the perspective. Like that's what builds everyone's perspective,
Yeah, I think like you were saying, that arrogance. I think that kind of ties into what we were talking about before we kicked off the podcast, where how powerful charisma is.
I
And
started noticing this
I
lately
think that
in life.
if you're not a charismatic person, it's a lot harder to convey your message, right? Portray your message. And so like that arrogance, a person that's very charismatic comes off as cocky or arrogant or overly confident. And sometimes you have to be that way to portray a message.
And I think it all starts with balance, because to be charismatic, you have to have confidence. Too much confidence, you can be an asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
But to have charisma and be likable, like a Keanu Reeves or like a Woody Harrelson, someone who has that likability, you do have to have confidence to pull off that likability, that charisma. So there is a little bit of arrogance to it, but you want to balance out that arrogance too. I think I've always said on this podcast, I think you need to balance out all forms of your life, whether it's drinking beer, whether it's doing podcasts, whether it's having conversations with friends versus like parents versus like, but just balance everything out you can in life, and you'll have a good life.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot though. Being a charismatic person as a kickboxing coach and a teacher, I try obviously I have to be very charismatic and I have to know what I'm talking about, and obviously that'll show very quickly if you don't,
For sure.
in the martial arts world, because you'll get your ass kicked. I mean, if you can't very easily control any situation in the martial arts world, it'll show very quickly that you're not very well trained. And so but like I try to be very charismatic and like not arrogant, but I have to have enough confidence to show that I know what I'm talking about, but also try to have that balance of like if someone questions me on something and I'm like, well, that's like, why do we do this to throw this technique or whatever it is, or like to throw this kick a certain way, why do we do it like this? And if I don't know, I can't just like make some shit up because you look like an idiot.
Right.
And that's what makes you look arrogant and cocky. So I try to find that balance of
being likable and then being likable at the same
I
time.
mean, yeah.
Being likable is important to being likable.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and
I mean,
the best way to be likable is like just with humility.
Humility.
It's
Exactly.
true.
Humility is the word I'm
Yeah,
looking
you're
for.
100% right.
Trying to being very humble and not afraid to be wrong, not afraid to not know. Well, I don't know. Let's think about this. Let's look at it. Let's discuss it together. Even if it's a 11-year-old kid asking me this question, if they ask me a good question, I don't know. I'm not going to be like, well, you just don't understand because you're 11 years old. I'm going to say, well, let's look at this and let's talk about it.
It's hard to face
Let's
that.
dissect it.
It's hard to face that judgment from the person you're talking to when you don't know. No one wants to feel like they don't know.
Yeah.
That's a harsh, like,
It is.
we all know, like, we don't want to feel dumb.
No,
Nobody wants to feel
that's right.
dumb or like ignorant to the topic or whatever it is. But to sit there and, like you said, humility is like to sit there and say, like, I don't know. I think that it kind of builds, it helps the character a little bit more. It's a harsh reality to face, and it's a little hard to take in sometimes when like you just, because sometimes some topics can make you feel stupid or whatever. Like you just feel unacknowledged. I don't know. I feel like sorry, I lost my fucking thought. It's the beers.
They do that.
They'll do it to you.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The humility is definitely the biggest part.
It helps.
And I think being having humility as a confident person is the fine line between being arrogant and confident.
Yes. And you got to balance it out.
A confident person is confident in what they know, but they're also confident in the fact that it's okay to not know something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person that's arrogant thinks that they know what they don't know.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest difference between arrogance and
a person who
confidence.
knows everything learns nothing. A person who knows nothing and like can acknowledge that, they can learn
They
more.
can learn. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere, and I was like, that's kind of.
I don't think you said that quite right, but I know what you meant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Like
I don't know what the quote is either.
the person who knows everything is willing to learn nothing because they think they know everything.
I know this is kind of a term, but what's that? What's the saying? Hugging a kiss and a peck, hug around the neck.
Yeah.
How's that saying go? I always feel like I get that wrong.
This is just a peck and a hug around the neck.
I don't think that's
Isn't
right,
it the saying?
I'm not sure. I keep thinking like the verse from the Bible where it says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, and it's just kind of like that's the being afraid of God. That's the ultimate like humble form you could take is just fear of
say the quote again.
The fear of God is beginning of wisdom. It's so being afraid of. I mean, in a sense, that at the same time, you're supposed to love God as well. I mean, it's just not, some people take that and it's just like, why would I be afraid of this thing that loves me? But part of it is because, like, you need to be afraid of what happens when you mistreat something that loves you. Like, you have to, because you don't know what that does to you, especially in the long term. It could estrange you from something that you should be closer to. But what I'm saying there when it comes to humility is like that's kind of like a grounding point of humility. Even in our faith at a theological level, we could tell you more about what we don't know about God than what we do.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, and that's kind of, we have a whole like system of theology where it's just like actually, one of the best ways to learn about, what God is to think about what he isn't and kind of to separate yourself from all of these worldly categories. And at some extent, we have to depend on them. We're humans. We're in the world. The world isn't bad, at least from, like, my tradition's perspective. God made the world. The world is good. The body isn't bad. Language isn't bad. Nothing is inherently bad. In fact, sin isn't a thing at all. It's a not thing.
I'm interested in what your take on that.
So sin is actually, it's an orientation towards nothing. It's you trying to become nothing or doing something that is, in a certain sense, like it's, even worldviews in some ways kind of worship or deify this nothingness. So like nihilism, where the whole point is just this belief in nothingness. But with Christianity, I'm actually kind of losing my track of thought here. But at least with my tradition,
they'll do that too.
yeah, they'll do that
too. Telling you.
Yeah, but
happens all the time.
Yeah,
every
but
podcast.
I think with like with my
episodes,
especially when you're old as fuck. Yeah.
With my tradition, I know we there's something to be said about nothing. It's not that it doesn't exist, but it's also like even God not only made the world, but he also made the nothingness that the world rests inside of. And, to seek union with God is to actually get past the nothingness itself. Whereas nihilists, people that reject meaning as a whole, they're trying to return to the nothingness which God made them.
I think, I see where you're coming from, but I think that it's all kind of through the lens of believing in religion itself. Like, to get to where you're at, you have to wholeheartedly believe like there is a God, there is a Jesus, and like the whole traditional view. That may not necessarily the traditional view of religion, but I think I've always respected people who were like truly religious and stuck by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've always respected that. I've always respected that because they believe.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I think there's something beautiful in believing in something that you have no fucking evidence of.
There's beauty in
you have
different kinds of evidence.
Right, but it just depends on if you believe or not. Like,
yeah, so I think, and this is like what I was trying to say, like with humility too. Like, for us, the apocalypse is something that we practice like every day. The apocalypse is part of faith. Because apocalypse just actually comes from the Greek word for revelation. So like to, know God is it's an apocalyptic event. He's revealed to you, but he does it on his own volition as well. But I think, part of the way I think as well, like to really understand something at this level, to understand God or, Christ, you have to become like him. If you want the evidence, if you want the visual evidence that you're looking for, if you want to see angels, you have to become like one.
But that's kind of bought into like you have to have the religion glasses on to see where you're at right now,
Or the Matrix.
You know, like you have to be bought into it.
The red pill.
And
Red pill.
you
a
know, it's
transition.
hard for me to say like was religion like a way to establish law and order, to establish what's right and what's wrong, which I think that's a lot of good comes from like if you live your life based off of like Christianity, you can have a great and amazing fulfilled life.
What you're saying,
Or a bad one.
is what you're saying,
Or a terrible one.
Maybe.
is what you're
Is-
saying, like, it was like a made up thing to create law and order.
It could be. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it is.
Sure.
I'm just saying that's a possibility. It also could be like, you know, their origins of cults. That like it was caught on and it was the biggest cult of all
a way to
time,
manipulate people.
a way to manipulate people, a way to establish power. You know, there's a lot of
Right.
followers in the world,
Yeah.
and you know, is that the greatest cult of all time? Because all, you know, the John Smith, you see the trends of people trying to create that and become that. That seems like the early evolution of cults
I wish Mr. Schultz was
and
here to hear
religion.
this.
And I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying that I have questions that have not been answered. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and I don't think a lot of us know. Truly, I
Yeah,
think
I know,
if you are religious, you can give me these ideas of like through your eyes of what you think it might be, but that's not proof to me. But I've always respected people, even though I've come from a place where I used to pray at night, and I was used to be very religious, but now I've taken a more I don't know, I guess more of a spiritual. The older I get, I'll get more spiritual, and lose religion, and I think it's because of there's a lot of good that comes from religion. I'm not trying to knock it, but I think that there's a lot of stuff that's hard to believe, and I think a lot of stuff that's can't be proven. And I like I said, I've always respected those people who really believe in those things because I think those people can live a good life, and I respect that.
And I sympathize with you a lot too, though, because I feel like growing up with my background, like, you know, it was there is this kind of like religious naivety in a way, where it's just kind of like it's just. Although, again, you know, I was like kind of Baptist, non-denominational.
The people you look up to tell you to be religious, and it works for them. And it seems like it's the right fucking thing to do. Be respectful, you know, all those things that come with religion.
But where's the
Makes you-
spiritual part?
Makes
you
you a great person. You know, like a person who like you really believe. You know, there's a lot of people who really believe that are really great people who live by that. And I think that as a kid, you look up to those people who are bigger than you because they kind of have taught you everything. They're your world. They're your universe at that moment. And you look up to those people. And then, like, to challenge that kind of calls them a liar. So on top of that, you already start to build this pressure to not push back against religion.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't want to disappoint the people you look up to.
Yeah.
And you don't want to call those people that you've looked up to for years liars. But we have questions. We all have questions. There's not a single person who can sit in that chair and tell me, I've always been bought in.
Well, I think
I've never had any doubt. I feel like that's kind of naive.
I think one of the biggest questions that everybody has is that, like, what happens when we die? That's the biggest. That's
That's
the
what a
question.
philosopher
That's
thinks
what-
about death.
Yeah,
you know?
So,
exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
where
Well,
it's-
what does the Greek or what does the Orthodox Church think? What happens? What's
So,
the
okay, I
afterlife?
also want to be careful because it's like, you know, I'm not like a representative of the Orthodox Church. I wasn't sent here to speak on behalf of it.
No.
It's-
This is just a fun podcast.
so as far
man.
as
no
I-
pressure, no
As
pressure.
far as I understand, you know, I would like to say I am baptized in the Orthodox Church, you know, so I receive communion. And that's an important aspect because for us, like, you know, you can't really have a context for what God even means until, you're receiving communion, you're going to confession and stuff. You know, that's like one of the, you know, big steps in really having that apocalyptic event, having that revelation to you is the Eucharist. But, you know, there's a lot of questions. I feel like I had the same thing where it's just like, you know, this isn't really spiritual. So that's like why I was in the occult. You know, I was getting into the occult and stuff and the magic, and I was just like, well, here's people who actually have this sacred, you know, ritualized worldview. Here's people who
referring to the occult.
Yeah. You know, here's people who, you know, want wisdom and, you know, are doing what they can in this way to get like knowledge. And so, yeah, I guess like now what was your original question?
So, as a member of the Orthodox Church,
Mm-hmm.
what is your belief as far as the afterlife goes?
Oh, the afterlife. Okay. So, that one's a little difficult because there's a few different interpretations. That's not something we have really dogmatic. If you want to like look at like what's dogmatic in Orthodoxy, you would just have to look at our creed, which is something we say every week before communion.
Well, I say that in a way like Christian, like a traditional Christian, or a traditional is what we know. They go to heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or resurrection, or whatever, whatever afterlife that our viewers believe in, or whatever that is. What is for the Orthodox Church?
So, a lot of the time, there are some people that will have similar beliefs to like what I think some American Protestants will believe, which is that everyone is saved in the end, no matter what. That's a very popular belief today, that at some point, and I think, at some point everyone is saved. But I think that, on a certain level, that's probably a good thing to believe. I think it says something about your heart.
I think it's necessary for the whole belief of what it is, because I think it's a little unfair for someone to be born into North Korea and to be killed without knowing Jesus Christ, and they go to hell and burn for eternity. That's very fucking dark if your God has created that. And
this is why I made that joke I made earlier about the Calvinist, where I said like that'll do it to you. Because Calvinists believe that you are born you're basically born chosen for damnation or like election. Because they have a very strange view of free will, where it's like, God has will and he's chosen who he wants, but they almost...
The way he darted his eyes at you when you said the words free will.
I did.
You don't realize the can of worms you just opened.
Huh?
No, I did dart my eyes at you, but it wasn't purposeful. It was a natural reaction.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
He heard free will and he said,
Yeah.
So in my faith,
I'm all about freedom,
we have free will. And we have free will because we are made in the image of God. And it is not a logical contradiction between us. Our salvation is based on our will's cooperation with the thing which made the universe, the thing which made ourselves. Our personhood is grounded in Christ. That's part of like the evidence for Christianity is like, do you believe you have reason? Okay, prove it. Well, I can't see it, Do you believe you have personhood? Prove it. I can't see it. These things are transcendentals that you use on a daily basis. And the foundation of those transcendentals themselves would have to be something which is transcendental. And so to have personhood and to have truth, you would need to have a person who is truth, And that would be the one person who says he is that thing, which is Christ. And there's also other aspects, God being Trinitarian, and
what is Trinitarian?
So God has three persons. It's one God.
Okay.
In the Greek, the word is
Father, Son,
hypostasis.
In a way.
Yeah, Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Now, we don't depict the Father. The Son and this Holy Spirit proceed from the Father. The Holy Spirit is what it's the life aspect of the church. It's what gives the church its authority. But but when it comes to the afterlife, it's actually weird you asked that question, because one of the books I brought,
I love this,
is The Soul After Death.
That was on top.
Yeah.
I was on top. He was ready. He said, "I'm putting this on top."
From Father Seraphim Rose, and it collects
The Soul After Death. That seems. I'm not gonna lie. The title is intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can check it out if you want.
But what's it about? Tell us.
So, and I might need to give a little background here. So I was when I was into the occult and such, what brought me sort of back to Christianity was this monk from California named Father Seraphim Rose.
He's from California?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he was raised Protestant, and then he became a Buddhist.
Okay.
So he became I think he became a Nietzschean and kind of like atheist, but then a Buddhist. He got into really Eastern stuff.
I'll be interested in picking someone's brain.
He was a student of Alan
had
Watts.
a path like that. Who?
I think he was a student of Alan Watts.
Who was that?
Do you not? Alan Watts. He's okay. He was like a big kind of. I'm kind of surprised you're not interested into him. He was this kind of Eastern psychedelic guy in like the 60s and 70s. I'm pretty sure. Or maybe the 50s and 60s. But he was a pretty influential person over that kind of movement. He's kind of related to like Terrence McKenna.
I know Terrence McKenna.
Okay,
Terrence McKenna.
I know the name.
I hate to interrupt. Y'all want to take a piss break real quick? Let's go back to this.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
I would like a cold beer.
Okay, cool. We'll be back, guys. Oh, Jeremiah got a beer up in the first try. I got beer on his
There we go.
on his MacBook.
Cheers. Cheers.
Every
to you and
time
your
I get it on
motherfucking
the MacBook, yeah.
You like the Gaelics, huh?
Better than the other ones, yeah. Are these not IPAs?
It's an ale.
Yeah, it's an ale.
It's
It's
a brown
an
ale.
ale.
Malty sweetness.
Oh,
Delicately
book.
hoppy.
Oops.
What's the name of the book again? I'm sorry. We just jumped back in. We took an hour break probably.
Yeah, I don't know where we left off at. I know we're talking about Terrence McKenna.
Don't
and
matter.
I have his book, The Food of the Gods, at home. I was really into
What's the name of that
psychedelia.
book right there though?
So this book is called The Soul After Death. This is
Okay,
by
yeah.
Father
Yeah,
Sam
that's what I was-
Very intriguing title, I have to say.
And so it's
Soul After Death.
Yeah, what does it say? The American book that has become Russia's most popular book on the afterlife. Russians are Orthodox Christians, so typically, this is part of the reason why it's really popular in Russia. Also, Greeks and Russians are like known as the two biggest.
Which way do you lean? Is there a difference in Russian and Greek Orthodox Church?
There are like some slight differences. For the most part, like we're in communion with each other. We have liturgy. We have the same liturgy and stuff, but it's some slight differences. So one of the biggest differences you'll see when you go to a Greek church versus a Slavonic church is the melodies, like the style of singing. Greeks sometimes kind of can sound like either like more like Western or even Arabic in some ways. They have like what they call like Byzantium or like Byzantine chant, whereas Slavonic would honestly sometimes actually even be more Western as well in some ways, but be more familiar. And mine is kind of, at least in America, there's no formal jurisdiction that's over all the other ones like in those countries where you have the Greek church, in Greece, and the Russia church, you have the Russian church. But in America, there's a bunch of other, there's Greeks here, there's Russians here, but I go to, my jurisdiction is an American jurisdiction, although it's not over all the other ones. But it is influenced by the Slavonic tradition, but we incorporate, also a lot of practices from the other ones.
Right.
But for the most part, it's like mostly the same. I mean, fundamentally, it is the same.
Like theologically and
yeah. So the rich, the things we do, I think our liturgies tend to be a little bit longer than the Greeks. Greeks are quicker. I think they tend to have more seats and stuff. Some just slight differences in some of the approach to the church itself, but at a foundational level, very similar. But yeah, this book, he talks about a lot of things. And what was the context? Why did I bring this up?
talking about the afterlife.
Yeah, the
And
afterlife.
What do you believe in
So,
exactly?
One thing, and he talks about this in this book, and this also actually relates to psychedelia as well, because he talks about psychedelic experience, and he talks about like Aldous Huxley. Do you know Huxley?
Mm-mm.
So Huxley wrote The Doors of Perception and Heaven and Hell. And if you're into psychedelia, those are some books you really want to check out at some point. Huxley's a huge figure in that realm. But I guess like the way, we believe in a soul. And we believe in the body, and the soul is in the body. And when you die, there is something like a temporary separation between the two. Now, for us, there is a tradition that you don't go to heaven, you don't go to hell, and you don't go to purgatory. You go to like the spirit realm or the aerial realm. And basically, it's like an intermediary area, almost like purgatory, but not the same as purgatory. Because with Catholics, that's where you get into some other territory. But with us, the spirit realm, and you see some evidence with this in the fact that every, religion or cultural group testifies to like this experience of this other realm,
Okay.
no matter where you go. I mean, even people that are into psychedelics, they talk about like going into this other area, this other place. And then for us, it kind of makes sense. You know, when you die, the body is no longer limiting the perception of your soul. So you're perceiving reality out as it is at a spiritual level. You no longer have, the body is not like this enhancement of perception, but a limitation. It's like, you know, the door, it's a door of perception. And when you get rid of that, you can see things you didn't see before. And so we would probably agree with people that are psychonauts or into psychedelics to that extent, but we would disagree in that the things that they think they're communicating with is enlightening them and giving them wisdom. For us, those things are probably demons. Those things are probably evil spirits. Those things are probably people who are appearing as angels of light, but are actually, you know, dark figures, you know, tricksters.
Okay.
But so yeah, that's kind of a, you know, one element that he talks about in this book as well. But so yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain. So do we believe in universal salvation? I'm not going to say we don't, but, you know, there's some people who think we do. I think one of the big things, though, is like the way we view it is it's really dependent on your heart and to God. You know, it's at the end of the day, there's a lot of people from different traditions, and it's like, okay, well, they don't believe in Christ, so how would they be in heaven? And I guess I'll say at this point, what I think is that it'll just depend on their heart. Like, it'll depend on, you know, the way that they approach their tradition and how well they've lived it out. Because all the other traditions in the world, in some way, typify or contain Christian elements in it.
Sure.
You know, Native
I think that's
Americans.
fair to say.
Native Americans had a flood story. You know,
I think all religions have had a flood story, and I think that's because the flood actually happened.
mm-hmm.
There was a massive flood at some point. You know, you can look at apparently, like I said, across all religions, they all have a story. It might not go down quite like Noah's Ark, but the fact that like they all have their version of what a flood was like during, like, in their culture at the time. They have a story to tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and exactly. So we would say, I think the Greek term, in fact, I might want to kind of Google this up because it's a weird word to butcher, but...
Did you know you're the first guest to bring a computer?
Really?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And I appreciate
it's
it.
For
I
this.
know, I appreciate it too, yeah.
It's for this reason.
It's all
so I
for
can
you,
double check.
Damien. It's all for you.
You seen The Omen?
You would like The Omen.
The Omen?
Yeah. You've never seen The Omen?
I'm not sure. Okay, so...
If you're not sure, you've never seen The
Omen?
Omen.
Wait a minute.
It's a
is that the
classic,
one with
what,
the orphan kid?
768, 71?
It's...
It might be like
71.
it might be like 73 or
I
something.
actually don't know if I've seen this or not. It looks familiar.
76.
Why do you bring
I
it
said
up?
clown
Why do you
because
mention-
he said this all for you, Damien.
Because I think
He said it's all for this.
yeah, but I do think he would really get into like more psychological.
I just want you to know that you might be the movie monster, but I'm the horror movie monster.
Fair enough. But I don't know. I've seen a good bit of horror. But I'm not
knows.
sure if I've seen The Omen. But the word I was looking for is logospermatikos.
Okay.
And so this is like a Greek term for... Logos means like word, truth, and spermatikos means seeds. So this is like seeds of the truth. So every religion or tradition contains... Yeah, every tradition contains like seeds of the truth. And that, I think for us, it'd be evidence of Christianity where it's like it's something so real that nothing else can escape it. I mean, even Nietzsche, who thought he was the Antichrist, at the end of his life, he was writing all of these letters, and he was signing them off Dionysus, and sometimes he would sign them off the crucified. So he's got these competing energies inside himself. But you see that with every tradition. Every tradition has to acknowledge that, you know, at some level or some way, truth exists. Even if they reject it, it's like, was it true that you should reject it? You know, it's, you know, you can't, even the devil, for example, he can't totally get away from Christ or reality. So when we're looking at like hell and people in other traditions going to hell, you know, ultimately it's up to God's will. That would, you know, be the deciding factor in that. But I would say that I think like hell is there isn't like just a place called hell. It's like an experience of God. Everyone is going to be sort of in the same spot, but what happens is the way that you live this life is going to determine how you experience being in the presence of God in the next one.
I know this might come off a little weird, but do you feel like it's kind of selfish in a way to like the way that people look at the afterlife? They only live this way because they know that in the end, like the eternal life that they will live after this life, in people that are practicing, in their head they know, or they have faith in whatever it is, right?
Yeah. So what's the question?
The question is though, is it selfish? Are they doing this for selfish reasons? Are people following a religion for selfish reasons?
Because they feel like it's the right thing to do.
No, not because it's the right thing to do, because they don't want to burn in hell for eternity.
They're scared out of fear.
Which we have mentioned, or Jeremiah's mentioned, in the Bible it does talk about, fearing God.
So maybe you think that God may have created people to believe in him out of fear, which seems like a...
I don't mean like so much as a fear, like fearing God, but, or whatever it is. I really just mean, like, is it a selfish thing to follow God? Is it selfish to not want to go to hell?
I would say no, because it's communal. You have to be humble in order to actually follow him in the first place. Like, you have to submit yourself in obedience, to not just to God, but to others, to your family, to the authorities which God gives you. Like, the only way you can actually even become like God is by not being selfish and being humble. And that's like the necessary, like the whole thing is like we become, I guess, part of the way we view it, and this comes from an Orthodox saint himself, is like, God became man so that men might become gods. And if we want to be like God, if we want to have divine energy dwell within ourselves in the same way that it is within Christ, then we have to become like him. And I mean, that's what I said earlier. If you want to see angels, you have to become like one as well.
Right.
So for us, it's very existential. It's very deep, existential. It's at a fundamental level of reality. And when we do that, we don't just change ourselves; we change reality around us. Animals, everything else becomes deified and lifted back up into paradise. And you
I guess what I was saying is, like, is following that ideology and, like, those principles, is that what's selfish? Because
I think it is.
A person not doing, like, you're committing these selfless and humble acts, but are you doing it for a selfish reason?
I think that what he's trying to say is, like, if you truly believe in, like, God and Jesus Christ, I would take your approach. But I think what you're asking is where I'm about to come from, is that a lot of people may do it for selfish reasons because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they have a sense of belonging. They like, people kind of tend to lean into those feelings because it makes themselves feel good, and that is the very definition of being selfish.
Well, I don't even want to talk about the people that do it for that reason. I want to talk about the people that are doing it purely because they think it's right or whatever, but at the end of the day, like we talk about, that spirituality, those morals in your head, you think this is good, but are you doing what's good because it'll give a better outcome for you in the future, which is eternity in heaven or the spiritual realm that leads to a heaven or whatever,
At the end of the day, it's our body. We're going to be selfish.
Well, it's certainly I would say it's certainly in your self-interest to do what's
self-interest.
good.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the same thing as selfish, because, like, when you say selfish, there's like an implied egoism, like it's all about me. And there's also like you're hurting others in the process, or you're at least
that's fair.
Them.
That is
its purest form.
But for us, it's self-sacrificial.
But the very definition of selfishness is what you're feeling at the time. So, which is where you're coming from, which is why you asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that there is, you can kind of go a more positive route with that, but I think that there is a little bit of selfishness to that and there's nothing wrong with that.
To counter,
I just think there's nothing wrong with the selfishness that you have for yourself, because you kind of are the only one at the end of the day who can look out for yourself. And I think we all understand that, so we think that we just overlook the fact that it is selfish. But I think that I think it is selfish, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
To counter what you're saying and kind of like to go, I guess, against my question. I mean, not like my question had an implied answer, but like you said, selfishness does imply that you're doing it in a way that hurts others, and I think self-interest is a very good way to put it. That's I guess that's a better verbiage to describe how a person is or why a person is doing that. Like if a person is going to invest money into whatever they're going to invest in, it's going to make them money. It's not, maybe I wouldn't consider that selfish. Like if you take your own money and you invest it, and then you're going to make more money.
Can you pull up like the definition of selfishness?
Sure.
Because I think that just because the feeling is different, just because you have a like different feeling towards the term or the word, doesn't necessarily dismiss what it actually is.
Okay, lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I think the way he put it,
for us,
yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah,
it just wouldn't work. Like
that.
It's because it's like for us to be obedient to God and to prepare yourself for that death and prepare yourself for paradise. You have to go to confession. You have to repent. There's like this. It's in your self-interest, but it's not really selfish to. Because at the same time, it's not really selfish because you're denying yourself. We're demanding that you deny yourself in the process.
Yeah, I think I agree with you now. I think you answered my question very well by using the words self-interest over selfishness. I think I might have been using the word selfishness wrong, in the wrong context.
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
which is why I pulled up the definition. Yeah, that's
exactly.
why I asked.
Honestly, I was about to be like, I'm bamboozled. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, right. No, you answered that in a very good way.
But I mean, I don't know. So I don't know. For us, it is different. I know, like earlier, we were talking about dichotomies between like religious and spiritual. I'd say for us, it's very spiritual and religious at the same time. The religious or like the dogma is just like this. It's more of like a guiding factor or a principle we use to guide our spiritual reality or spirituality.
Sure.
But also spiritual reality at the same time. It lays the foundation for it. And
I remember what I was going to say. I was going to ask about the spiritual realm, though. Could you go into more detail? Could you elaborate a little more on that? I know we talked about the afterlife as far as what the Orthodox Church bases it off of, and you brought up that there's not really a heaven, hell, or purgatory, and that the spiritual realm is more like a purgatory, but it's not exactly that. Could you elaborate more on the spiritual realm?
So yeah, I don't know. Again, with heaven and hell, I'm not going to say that they're not places, but at least as far as I understand them, they're kind of like they're positions that you put yourself in. This isn't something that like God chooses for you. It's almost like a default. If you're going to interact with this thing, this is how it's going to feel if you do this to yourself your whole life. I think that's probably one way of looking at it. It's you sort of see types of that or prototypes of it in the Old Testament. There's the three boys. Was it Meshach and Abednego? You know what I'm talking about? Was it? What are the three names?
That sounds familiar.
I always forget one. Meshach.
The reason I'm asking these questions is because this seems like, honestly, a religion that I could potentially lean towards. I'm very confused as to my religious beliefs. I feel like I'm more agnostic. I definitely believe there's something out there. Obviously there is a higher power.
Yeah, there's definitely a higher power, but I don't necessarily. I don't really draw towards man-made religions.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That was the.
Oh, okay.
So these are the people that were put in the furnace when they refused to worship an idol, and an angel protected them from the fire. And I think that's a good analogy of what heaven and hell both are like at the same time, because it's in a way you could think of it in the afterlife. Everyone's going to be on fire because of how inescapable Christ will be, and your preparation for what that inescapable fire will be like is now. Are you going to be one of the people that is protected by the angel and can stand in the fire, or are you going to be one of the people that would just burn in the fire forever?
So is there an eternal damnation?
The
I know that's not an easy question.
I'm gonna say I don't know. On that one, I'm gonna say I don't know. But
Well, I think that the main thing is like we really don't know if any of this exists at all, anyways.
And the reason I asked this is because the way he put it is that maybe heaven or hell isn't an actual place, but if you continue to treat yourself like this, you're putting yourself through heaven or hell.
Right.
And that's something.
can
I
experience-
And that's just the
that's something
perspective.
I can agree with.
That's perspective in general. I think that speaks more, not on a religious aspect, but more of like just a standard aspect of like perspective in general. Because if you like, we all know the guy at work who just continues to complain every single fucking day,
or he goes home and he
dude
cheats on his wife and he wonders why she left him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like perspective is everything. If you continue to see things in a negative light, you're going to have a negative life. You got to break yourself out of that shit. And however you break yourself out of that is on you. That's personal, But to those people who always see things negatively will live a negative life. That's
Yeah.
just a fact. Religious or not.
that's another thing.
You can tie religion to it and it does sound good, but I think that it doesn't necessarily make religion any more true.
So we talk about heaven and hell. Another thing I would say about this is these are things that you can experience now. This isn't something you have to wait till you're dead to experience.
I like that.
You can experience hell now.
On
you
Earth.
can experience,
Yeah.
a little bit of heaven now.
Even if it's on earth in reality or in your mind.
Mhm.
Well, then is there an eternal salvation?
Yes. I mean, it's so part of it too, though, is like when you die. I guess I would say we believe like there are no evil options. You can't choose evil, and so people that are accustomed to evil, that's why it's in eternal suffering, is because they can no longer choose it, but they want it so much. Whereas everyone else, is choosing between multiple different kinds of good, and there's only good options. And it's hard to explain that. Part of it too, though, is we believe like in the recapitulation of reality. So everything comes back to life. Everyone that dies. I think there will be dogs, animals, everything in heaven, because there were in paradise. We had animals in paradise with Adam and Eve. So there were creatures in the garden, and that's basically like a prototype
That
of
sounded
what.
like the Beatles, those creatures in the garden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
creatures in the garden. So.
Cox.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, but I don't know. It is kind of a complicated subject. Ultimately, when it comes to like religion and belief of why someone would believe in one thing, is because I think at the end of the day, only one thing can be true. You can't have multiple truths that say totally different things. And so, if this one thing is like, if your soul's dependent on it, then it's kind of important. Not just kind of. It's like the thing. It's like the one important thing you have your whole life to.
Maybe we all want
struggle
something
with.
to believe in, for
Mhm.
sure, and a reason why we're here. But I think that people don't question it enough. I think that people kind of like look for a reason and they fit in because of their culture, where they're at, the people they look up to, and it kind of manipulates them into like these kind of wild ideas of some cult guy who created Christianity years back that it kind of like built up to what it is now. We all mock John Smith, the Mormonism. We all kind of tend to give that a little bit of pushback because of its wacky ideas.
Yeah, it was definitely strange.
Multiple wives. You go to your own personal heaven. All these things.
Yeah, it's still weird.
Depeche Mode, shout
It's
out.
a little weird, but like
Personal
we're
Jesus.
all on a spinning sphere in space. Who's to say what's
Say
weird
that
and
10
what's
times
not?
fast.
I barely got through it with the 8 beers I've had today.
8 of them?
No, it's probably like 6.
Oh.
I was way off.
Um,
But what I'm trying to say is like, I think that like things need to be questioned a little bit more, because I don't think that I think people kind of tend to tie their beliefs to like who taught them those beliefs, and like you don't want to dismiss those, and manipulation's kind of involved in an odd sense, and
Right.
I think that things are weird enough on this world to have a consciousness. And
It's crazy. It's absurd.
is wild with the body, and we're here talking in these mics on a like sphere spinning in space is one of the weirdest things already. That I think that you can't rule out so many possibilities of why we're here, and that's where I'm at. Like maybe I just haven't had that connection. And I used to be a little religious back in the day, I used to pray every night. But the older I got, I feel like the more I started to realize that nobody truly knows why we're here. And I really appreciate your appreciation for your religion. I want
to also talk about, like, I feel like the way he approaches religion is almost is very similar to how we look at life.
Oh, I agree with that. That's why I appreciate it.
But I think
really
it's
why I appreciate it.
Maybe a little more structure.
Yeah.
To how we look at life. We look at life in a way that you treat people the way you want to be treated. Obviously,
right.
That's like
that's why religion is a good thing. Is because morally, it set a lot of standards on how we need to live our lives.
But I feel like we live our lives that way in general.
Because of religion and law and order.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that the way we live our lives, me and you, Shawn.
Oh, for sure.
Is that we're very respectful to people.
And
we're very open and honest, and we try to be that way. Anyways.
Just like Jeremiah's been.
Right.
I try to be.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's I
try to see Christ in everything.
I think the Orthodox Church.
I appreciate that.
I think the Orthodox Church, what he's saying, or what I've gathered from this, is that it creates more structure around that way of thinking.
And I think that that's beautiful. I personally don't really believe in those ideologies, but I do think that there's a lot of good that comes from that way of thinking and that idea. Right. I think that I think it's very beautiful. I've always, like I said, respected those people who truly believe in God and Jesus Christ and those religions. I think there's something really nice and comforting that you can have. That's why I'm kind of jealous in a way to say that, like, you truly believe in this is a beautiful thing. That at the end of the day, you can have those arguments, and at the end of those arguments, like, where your heart is, and you've lived by that, and it's right to you. There's a lot of beauty in that I'll kind of wish I had in some kind of higher power feeling, but truly, I don't know why we're here and how we've gotten here. Everything's weird enough as it is, and I think to believe in something so wholeheartedly without any evidence is kind of strange to me.
I have a question for you, Shawn.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that that way of thinking is almost like you putting yourself above a person that believes in a religion?
I've never felt that way. I've always just, I'm a person who I need logic to kind of guide myself. I've always kind of been that way. I feel like I need legit evidence. I'm a person of, me in football, I'm a statistic person. I need to see it.
Right.
I need to see it. Like, just because you love this person doesn't.
You think it's more emotional than it is?
No, I think it's more emotional for the people who believe.
Right.
That, yeah.
For me, what's the word I'm looking for? What you're saying, statistical and it's like scientific. It's not really what I'm looking for.
I think that some of these people can easily be manipulated in relationships and tricked into the cults, and it's not a knock on Jeremiah. I think he's very thoughtful and very articulate into what he's saying. I'm really proud of him for, like, being who he is, but I kind of take a different approach, I guess is what I'm saying, and not to judge that or knock that, but I think that there's more possibilities to why we're here. Things are strange enough, and I think religion is man-made. I think
sure.
It's a reason for people to have a sense of belonging. I think it could create law and order. I think, like I said, the things I alluded to earlier about, cults and those things. And you know what? At the end of the day, I could be wrong. And if I was shown evidence to believe if that evidence was shown to me, I would happily accept that. And I don't think that and I get that they don't, in their eyes, in your eyes, you don't need evidence. Like, you personally believe, and I respect that. I really do. But for me, I'm a person who I need to kind of see it first, and there's a lot of things in the Bible that kind of contradict each other. I'm not a big Bible pusher, so I can't really elaborate on that. I would be happy to have Crabman on to kind of talk about these things with you on. I think that'd be a fun podcast that we're going to set up later.
For sure.
But like I said, and it's never been like a judgment thing. I do appreciate, and I am a little jealous of those people who really believe, and it really helps them progress as a human and they find comfort in those things, and they truly believe. And honestly, maybe they're right. Maybe you're right. But I think that what I'm trying to say is, I think that it's a little naive not to question it. A little bit, because I think we all have questions about it.
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to what we're talking about with being a charismatic person.
Right.
Is that I'm sure that Jeremiah does have his questions, but that's also the battle with faith.
For sure.
I don't want to act like I'm some.
And
I don't
I'm
want to
not
act like I'm
above
some
that.
kind of.
I'm not above that at all.
I don't want to act like I'm some kind of faithful religious person, because
Yeah.
I'm not at all.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm
but
just
that's-
saying I
that's
don't
what I
know.
struggle with,
I think that's
too.
what I'm trying to say. Is like, I don't know, and I haven't been convinced. I
Mhm.
appreciate your passion for it. I really do, because I used to kind of have that passion for it. I kind of moved on from it, and I've always said that Anne Margaret is one of the most religious people I know, and she is one of the, she is legitimately like a
One of
saint,
those
to me.
beautiful souls.
That has ever existed,
yeah.
and has very similar beliefs, and I can always appreciate that. I've been very critical of religion on this podcast.
And I mean, we both have.
But I've always respected it, because I think that there is something beautiful with, people really believing and thinking that they're going to be saved and all these things, when in reality, I don't think we really know.
Jeremiah, do you feel like some people do put themselves, like the question I asked Shawn was, do you feel like you kind of put yourself above people that believe in religion? Do you feel like the people that don't believe in religion are trying to put themselves above, as far as like an intellectual stance? If I didn't stutter 15 times there,
I ain't good.
In an intellectual point of view, do you feel like those people are doing that?
I mean, I guess sure. I mean, I think pride is a very big problem. It's
For sure.
It's hard to tell whether or not it's like the root problem if it's pride. I tend to look at resentment as probably being one of the worst things. But there is certainly you see types of it even in the scripture where, Adam and Eve, I mean, what kicks them out of paradise? It's the fact that they're wanting wisdom from, they want to have the knowledge of the gods. And that's what the serpent offers them. Is take this fruit and ye shall be like gods. You'll know the difference between good and evil and such. And so that itself is kind of like a temptation, but it's very, I don't know, it's very difficult, because I do feel like, there's different kind of evidences. You have evidence in a materialistic sense, where it's if you say something happened to you, it's easy to qualify it whether or not you can show me a video or a picture,
Sure.
Or even eyewitness testimony. It's pretty good. It's not always reliable. Christ is pretty attested to, probably even more so attested to than people like Julius Caesar and Plato and, all these other figures in history that we talk about. But whether or not what he did was possible is possibly dependent on the way you view what is possible in reality itself. And so for me, when I see people that struggle with this idea of Christianity, I think part of it has to do with, just with religion in general, not just Christianity, but I think part of it has to do with just the way we're raised. And, our culture is very materialistic. It's very reductionistic. It's very it's just not very, it's not what it takes to believe in religion, which is kind of metaphysical.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Our culture is very
I agree with that for sure.
Some people, even in the Orthodox world, there's this idea
we're not
that
built for religion in today's time, I guess, is what you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
With everything that's going on, the Kardashians, reality TV, all sports,
why
and
think
all these
about
things.
death?
Why think about why think about
That's a very
that?
good point.
In the 90s and the early 2000s, I feel like that was definitely the push, especially in our area with people pushing against Marilyn Manson and Grand Theft Auto with religion. We
talk about this all the time. Do you think that will come back around? I know we talk about and I've alluded to this a lot on the podcast of the fact that like in the 80s you had, or in the 70s it was like very hardcore grindhouse kind of coming up with, and like a lot of serial killer movies like Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Psycho and stuff like that. And then and then in the 80s it was a lot more PC, which we just
Dirty
saw
Dancing.
that in 2010, which it was a wild time. 2010 was, and then 2020 is a lot more PC.
Quentin Tarantino's talked about this. I know I've talked about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and which this is a topic. This has come up multiple times on the podcast between the two of us. Even on just the episodes of just me and you.
Yeah, for sure.
But do you think that like in the 30s and the 40s, do you think that way of thinking will come back?
Which way, like a spiritual way of thinking, or?
Well, like he was saying in the 90s, it was like you think about death.
Oh, well, so the 90s, and this is actually an interesting point because, in the Orthodox world in America, the 90s had, you see a lot of grunge and punk and stuff,
right? Yeah,
kind of remnants out of the 80s. You see some of those in the underground of the 80s, but it becomes mainstream more so in the 90s, right? And
that transition out of PC and.
But you actually have, like, in the Orthodox world, we have in America, you see some of those people became Orthodox. There was a whole punk band where they became Orthodox. This one singer became Orthodox. They started a magazine or a zine called Death to the World. It's a very this very cool Orthodox project. This kind of like punk project called Death to the World, and there's videos from it at this point, but there's like magazines and stuff. And the whole point is just like, in the punk subculture, you see this like rebellion against the world. And so I think there's a point of entry where it's like, okay, well, if we're going to really rebel against the world, then why not be like Christ in the most ancient and, serious sense possible? Because he was this guy that popped up and was killed by it,
So you're saying that being Christian is just punk rock?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, it's the ultimate.
I kind of get it. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
It really depends on what's popular at the time. If it's punk rock,
makes sense.
You don't see it today
because there for a time, being non-religious was very punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
True,
yeah,
sense.
It's like it would be the difference between being normal and getting fed to lions. It would be the difference between like being alive and dead, because people would kill you for it. I mean, for the first 300 years, it was it was punishable by death. They would feed you to lions, take you to the gladiator matches, and torture you and kill you in front of thousands.
How often do you think about? How often do you think about that?
About that?
The Colosseum days.
The
Roman Empire.
My Roman Empire.
That's like a thing that's going around right
in
now in pop culture.
It's popular.
How
I can
often
get it.
do you think about the Roman Empire?
I don't know. I mean,
I think we all kind of think about it more than any other like previous civilization. I guess does that make sense?
We're dying. Like the Roman Empire, we're just falling apart. We're just
maybe that's what it is.
Fuck.
Maybe that's what it is.
Everything is
but
death.
Like the Roman Empire seems so like above its time, and I think so do we.
I think it's fair to put in the title of this podcast with Jeremiah Hutchins.
Death.
Death and despair.
awaits.
Death and despair.
Yeah.
Death and
It's been
religion.
some good conversation,
that's
man.
the
I
whole
have
point
to
with
say.
Christianity. Death to the world. Die we have death without dying, so we can have dying without death. That's kind of the whole point when we're talking about like hell and stuff. These people, part of the problem is they're just always dying.
Yeah.
They can't give up the passions and stuff.
Could you explain what that means to a drunken buffoon sitting here in the chair, or to the audience?
So
Either
yeah,
one.
I mean it's like
Not
part
saying
of it,
that both of those exist.
Mostly to the drunken buffoon.
you have all these. I mean, in some sense, like the Buddhists even talk about this, right? Having attachments to the world.
Death without dying, or dying without death.
Mm-hmm. So like, I mean, what is life? What is living? Living would be, in this sense, it's like the passions. It's the things that dominate you. It's libido dominandi. It's the things that are within you and drive you. Yeah, exactly. That clicked right there. But
horny.
That's
what you said.
But yeah, I mean, it's these passions that drive you and dominate you, and whether it be your pride, whether it be your gluttony, whether it be your greed, your lust, these are the things which make up the world as it is today in its fallen nature, and these are the things that we are going to die to. so that we can overcome them and become something greater, become gods.
And the way I view it is, and I think it's a similar way that you view it, is that death without dying means that you've lived on this earth and never experienced anything. Like, you've never experienced love. You've never experienced having a glass of wine with a steak. Like, just the purest form of
That's so good.
not being able to live, but you're not dead. Death without dying. You're alive, but you're dead inside. Like, the fact that you've never being able to, like, have enjoyment in something, playing piano, any kind of passion, any kind of art, any kind of anything, any kind of whatever creates you as who you are or could be. I think that that's what death without dying is the fact that you lived a life that was never worth living. That's death without dying.
I kind of took it in a completely different way. I kind of took it.
I think I meant it slightly different as well.
I know you did, but that's where I go when I think of that.
When I hear death without dying, can you say the quote again, please? Because
we want death without dying, so we can have dying without death.
Right.
Okay. So
we die before we die, so when we die, we don't die.
Right. So and I think the way I took that is that death without dying is that, like, throughout our time on earth, we're gonna die, and like I said, like I talked about whenever I said, like, Santa Claus, you learn that Santa Claus isn't real, and that's a death of a certain part of yourself.
For sure.
And so, like, you experience that death, but you didn't physically die. A part of you died. You had a death.
Right,
there was a death in a part of your character, whether that was that heartbreak.
That's a hole in your
like
heart,
I was talking
man.
To,
That's called a hole in your fucking heart.
But you felt that, and your character grew.
Yeah.
And you didn't actually physically die. And so you experience
heartbreak,
that death.
Man.
You
That's
experience death without physically dying. So whenever you do physically die, you are prepared for it. Just like you were talking about with Plato, and Tarkovsky saying that, everything we do leads up to, or we're thinking about death.
Mm-hmm.
That was paraphrasing poorly, but
no, you nailed it. Yeah, we're thinking about death.
But
preparing for death.
You die mentally and spiritually without physically dying. So whenever you physically die, you're prepared for that spiritual and mental death.
Something like that. Yeah,
that's how I took it.
It's sort of hard to get to. I know, like, there's actually a channel that recently uploaded, or I think two of them. They uploaded a video called "Death to the World," and it's from this same group of Orthodox people that they come from the punk culture, and they come from a metal culture, and they use a lot of that aesthetic as well into their art and stuff. They take a lot of things, and the whole point is, like, when we talk about the world, we mean the passions, and these are the things which dominate you. And if you want true freedom, you have to die to those passions.
Yeah, but now that I think about it, I mean, it kind of does make sense. What you were saying too, though, is like if you're not going to live your life, you're never going to die.
Well, let's talk about
death.
it on the realest level, man. We can get as philosophical as we
you're
want.
Never gonna die without death. Like,
but
if you're not experiencing your life,
exactly.
You're never gonna have those mental and spiritual
that's what
deaths.
I think is most important. I think that, like, you have this life. We only, like, as far as we know, you can pretend to act like you think that there's an afterlife, but at the end of the day, what we know is this: we have this life. Maybe there's another one. Maybe we relive the same life. Maybe we come back as, a fucking insect in this backyard.
What if we?
Maybe
what if
we
go.
Maybe we. Maybe if you live this life the way that you want to live it, maybe you do go to heaven, and there is the afterlife. But all we know right now, truly, deep down, is that this is the life we have.
Nothing matters more than this moment.
And I want to challenge. I want to challenge that, and I want to live within that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to experience these fun things, whether it's a metal show or whether it's whatever, climbing a mountain or whatever you do in your hobbies that really brings you joy. But I think that that's what it is to me. The fact that a lot of people live scared and they never can truly unlock their full potential. That's death without dying to me.
And I think
the fact that you just can't.
Whenever
you're scared to be yourself. That's death without dying.
You're scared of failure.
You're scared of failure, and you don't want to chase the person that you deep down you want to be, but you're scared of everybody looking at you. And in this moment, you're the raw version of what you want to be. Because we all know when you chase a passion, you're never going to be the best form of what you think you can be. Because you have the vision of the pinnacle, the top of what you can be in this passion. But yet you're scared to chase it because the growth that it takes to get there, the judgment those people will have. We all felt it when we started this podcast.
Oh yeah.
When we started this podcast, we felt like when you told somebody you had a podcast, you just knew the feeling inside.
Like you're a little embarrassed to tell somebody.
You're a little embarrassed, and I'm saying fuck that feeling, because that crushes so much creativity and art and who you can be. That's death.
So the way you worded it, it kind of made me think
that's death.
That is death. But I feel like that's not death. I feel like
within living.
I feel like the way that he's wording it and the way that the
we're
philosophy,
going two different.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think we are.
Okay.
I think that the way that the philosophy that he's going by is wording it is that's not death. I think that that's the opposite of death. I think that if you never do those
sitting
things,
back and never becoming what you
never become what you become, you're never going to fail and you're never going to experience death before you die.
Ah, I like that.
So like by sitting back and being lazy and being scared and being afraid of failure, you're never going to experience death. I think death is more of is more synonymous to the word failure. Failing before, or a death before dying, so that we can. God, I forgot again.
So I guess
does that make sense?
I can see that. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I think for us, like in the way like the Orthodox Church interprets it, it's like it's or at least the way I understand that they interpret it is there is something very false and fake about the world which we live in, and there's actually a reason to rebel against it. And Christ is like this prototype of, calling out the BS of
he on his taxi
reality.
driver shit.
Yeah, and then
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I've never been more intrigued in a religion than I am right now. I'm 100% serious right now.
But it's like it's yes, we die to the world. So part of it is just like because there is a reality more real than this BS, and the only way to actualize that reality is becoming like Christ. And we all have our own way of doing it. We all have our own individual way of approaching Christ, because Christ is not here to dissolve our personality or our distinction from him or everyone else, but actually to baptize it and then deify it, to make it godlike and then full of divine energy, and become like a God itself. And so, but yeah, I actually pulled up the death to the world, and it says, so, the question, what do we mean by death to the world? And so it quotes Saint Isaac the Syrian, because in our church we also have saints and stuff, very similar to Catholics. The world is the general name for all the passions. When we wish to call the passions by a common name, we call them the world. But when we wish to distinguish them by their special names, we call them passions. The passions are the following: love of riches, desire for possessions, bodily pleasure from which comes sexual passion, love of honor which gives rise to envy, lust for power, arrogance and pride of position, the craving to adorn oneself with luxurious clothes and vain ornaments, the itch for human glory, which is a source of rancor and resentment and physical fear. Where these passions cease to be active, there the world is dead. Someone has said of the saints that while alive they were dead, for though living in the flesh, they did not live for flesh. See for which these passions you are alive, then you will know how far you are alive to the world and how far you are dead in it. So that's just a quote from St. Isaac that it uses to describe itself, death of the world. I recommend this. Plug, deathoftheworld.com.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Okay.
Well, everyone shameless plug.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. 5 stars on Spotify.
Please do. Also check out our Sunday live cast. 10:30.
10:30. We are hitting. Let's go.
We are hitting solid. We did miss on the Giants defense last week, but I have to say I've doubled my money in fantasy in multiple weeks this football season. Please tune in. Brian Snell,
baby. Let's go.
Denver over
Kansas City.
The Kansas City Chiefs.
The
Brian
Bengals over the 49ers.
I've nailed it. Please tune in if you really want to truly dominate in fantasy and
DFS betting
and the
odds.
DFS
Being there,
lineup.
here.
Please tune in.
That shameless plug came so fast. You never even knew what was
Yeah.
coming.
Please Please
plug
tune
after
in.
plug. I might as well. Can I plug something
Sunday.
else?
Plug something else,
You
dude.
got to plug.
Plug anything. It don't matter.
Sarah from Rose. I'd like to plug Father Sarah from Rose for his book. So actually, 2 books really influential on me. So I referenced The Soul After Death, but also Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future. He talks more about Christian denominations, Protestantism, different things within it, evangelicals, and I think he talks about Calvinists as well. So. And Catholics and a lot of
That'll do it.
a lot of different a lot of different temptations.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to have Brent on this podcast because he's gonna be able to
He's gonna refer to a lot of the things that was said on this podcast, and so. But honestly,
I might watch it.
the
yeah.
next time you're on this podcast, you're gonna be challenged.
Go back and listen to the Crab Man all 3 episodes.
All 3
and
episodes?
you will thank yourself.
And you talked to
Yeah.
him at Bryant's wedding, where me and Chris Harris got out there and learned to cut.
Shout
a
out Chris
rug.
Harris. He was out there.
We've been known to cut a rug.
I got a pee so bad.
Yeah, should we take another break?
You got a pee too?
Me too.
Yeah, there we go. You don't be ashamed. We'll be back, guys. You good?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back, guys.
See it in your
It's just me. It's just me opening a beer. It's just me.
I've
Cheers,
been there
boys.
several times. Cheers. What were we talking about before we left off?
We're talking about album of the week.
Oh yeah.
We kind of came to a stopping point before the piss break, so I felt
Which was a good. I felt like it was a good stopping point.
Yeah, I
because-
agree.
Yeah.
Take the new red pill.
Okay.
next
Shout out
transition.
Where
into
you
the
guys at with the album of the week? You know, we haven't done this. This is OG shit for this podcast. We haven't done album of the week in
like maybe
5 or 6.
Yeah, something like that.
Because I
Maybe a
think
month.
you tend to bring it up more than I do these days. Which
Yeah,
and when you
album of the
do,
week
I
is
have to
every
say
now
I
and then.
really appreciate it because I love the album of the week. I think
Yeah,
it holds true to
yeah,
what
for
we are.
sure. You already know.
You know, I think that's what we started with early days. We had an album of the week every podcast, and now I feel like I've kind of moved away from that a little bit, and I love when he brings it back.
Who
Because-
starts it?
Well, go ahead. You're
Me?
the guest.
Yeah, what's the album of the
Do
week?
you want us to start?
Album
We
of
can
the-
start.
I don't mind. I don't mind who
All right,
starts.
you go. You go first.
Oh,
'cause I've got
okay.
Mine. I've got mine dialed in.
Album of the week is Elephant for me for the White Stripes. I've
Oh,
featured it
That's not
on.
elephant.
That is Elephant.
That's elephant. Okay.
Yeah,
I always forget
I've
White
featured
Blood
it
Cells
on
is an
here on this podcast probably 3 or 4 times. This might be
Yeah.
the 4th. And it was the album I put on this podcast for the 2nd episode. The first episode I think was Cochise,
Yep. That's right.
and maybe yours was Led Zeppelin 2, I believe.
Yeah, because it was my 2 albums.
Yep.
I just brought them. I was like,
Yes,
fucking, I got
and in
'em.
the 2nd episode I put my first album up there, which was Elephant, and it was an album that really kind of spoke to me on I feel like Jack White really expressed himself on a blues rock level on how he felt and how hurt he was through like these relationships. I really felt like he expressed that through his guitar in a modern way in 2000. And when did Elephant come out? 2001? Yeah, 2001 or 2. No,
Okay,
it was 1 or 3. I'm gonna
Watch,
say
it's gonna be fucking 99 or some stupid shit.
no.
we're always off.
No.
like
It's
I know it's
it's not. It's 2001.
I know. I'm
believe.
saying it's gonna be like something way 2005.
Yeah,
or
because it
something
wasn't
way
in the
off.
90s and it wasn't past 5. It's an album that I felt like you really saw a true
2003.
Okay, 2000. I know it was 1 or 3.
Recorded on November 2001 through 2002.
It's an album
April.
that I felt like Jack White really expressed himself with his guitar, and meanwhile, you know, he's dating the drummer who oddly he tried to portray like I think that he was like going through
What
what
they got married.
they got married.
And he tried to act like that was her sister. That
Yeah,
was it was her sister.
that it was like he tried to portray it as like she was a family member, and deep down they're like dating. I don't know if he was just trying to say that like there's no like the music doesn't correlate to the relationship. I don't know what
Right.
battle he was fighting then, but
That was some weird shit.
yeah, definitely weird as fuck. But the music's weird as fuck. You know, Elephant is 7 Nation Army is the song we all know from that, but you also got like Hardest Button to Button.
Oh yeah.
There's so many, Ball and a Biscuits on the
Ball and a
album
Biscuit.
where it's like,
It's a
honestly,
fact that I'm the second son.
yeah, it's just a straight blues rock, and you really get to hear Jack White express himself through his guitar, and I feel like that's an album that will always be in my top 10. You know, it was
you couldn't have worded that better. I mean,
yeah, it would always be in my top 10. You know, it might not be in anybody else's, but you know, this is my motherfucking list. You know,
yeah,
like,
I'm gonna be honest with you. You're the one that got me into the White Stripes as big as I was. At
Yeah,
the time. And I mean, I still love the White Stripes. I love Jack White.
Yeah.
the Raconteurs. I mean,
yeah, and you tend to like the Raconteurs more.
I think I like the White Stripes better, but I do the Raconteurs 2 albums. Not their third album, but their first 2 albums hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I liked, and
they're
I
a little
love
more
those
folky.
albums too.
And I think that's because I was in the
Yeah.
Avett Brothers, at the
Right,
time, which is
right.
also a band you showed me. So
Right, and yeah, I think that Jack White was always a guy who like blues rock was like, let me like blues. We all know like these guys really couldn't sing in blues, so they're like, I can't
I'll play
really
my fucking
sing.
heart
I'll
out.
show you how I feel through my instrument. I
Yeah,
can't
I
really
like that.
sing very well, but let me show you how I feel through my instrument. You know, Stevie Ray Vaughan was always like that. Eric Clapton was always like that. Eric Johnson was always like that.
Yeah, I like that.
B.B. King, you know, so many blues artists,
A lot of blues
Buddy
artists, for
Guy,
sure.
you know, so many blues artists was like that, and I think that you see that in a modern take in 2000 with that album, and for it to be a 2-piece band with the music that they made showed how not only like the feel that I have towards Jack White, but I think it shows a lot of he's an artist and a musician, you know,
I see what you mean.
you know, like Michael Jackson was an artist,
And a musician.
Prince was a musician.
I feel like Michael Jackson was a musician as well.
Well, Michael Jackson was more of an artist because, and I'm not really trying to get into this, but he was like so creative with like how he wrote his music, you know, the dance performances. Like he really put on the art. He got Eddie Van Halen to like he knew what needed to be done,
Sure.
and he fucking did it, and he was good at what he did. To whereas like Beck is a musician, he can play 30 different instruments, and that's why he beat out Beyonce, the artist.
Right.
You know, that's kind of the
Sure.
the split
sense.
for me. But not to make it long-winded, I think that
Yeah.
everybody should listen to this album front to back.
Oh, absolutely. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, because it's great. I feel like it's great.
Jeremiah, what you got? What's your album?
So, David Fincher's new movie just came out. David Fincher, The Killer.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
throughout the whole movie, it keeps playing The Smiths.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting there. Okay.
So, my
I
album of
took
the
a
week
walk upon love.
will have to be The Complete of The Smiths.
Okay.
The complete album of all their music.
I have to say, if I could guess one band that you listen to, the Smiths would have definitely been in the running.
The Smiths?
I could see it.
Fair
It fits
enough,
you.
man.
It fits
I love
you.
the
I like it.
Smiths.
I like it.
So, yeah, that's probably, album of the week. I mean, I guess it's not fair because the
Greta
complete
Van
album
Fleet.
is like all of their music.
That's fair.
Greta Van Fleet is great, but also because it's like I love Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin, so.
He was. Whenever I first met him, I think it was at Mad World.
Oh, you met him in Mad World?
Oh yeah,
Really?
Yeah, so
yeah.
me
Mad
and-
World.
Me and Jacob went out, and I think it was me and Gabby and Jacob.
Did
and,
you
like,
think he was a jabroni?
Gabby had some friends.
Yeah, a few of Gabby's friends came, and so Jacob and Jeremiah came and met me out there.
Nice. Okay.
And
This is some good.
this was like
storytelling.
2017.
I'm throwing it back.
Yeah, I was sober
To
at the
2017.
haunted house. You know, sober. This is lame as fuck. Why the
Yeah.
fuck would I do that? No, but we get there, and this is the first time I met him. He had an American flag bandana on, like a.
As you should.
Yeah, it was kind of fucking sick.
Why wouldn't you have an American flag
headband? That's what it was.
bandana?
That's the word.
I don't know why I had it either.
He was just that guy, you know.
It's that
His
yeah.
America.
He was portraying that he loved America. I get it. Respect.
And so we started talking. He was like talking about Led Zeppelin. I was like, oh, okay, this guy's all right. He's talking about Led Zeppelin and Greta Van Fleet. That was when the Greta Van Fleet From the Fires just came out.
Mhm.
Nice.
So it was good. Yeah, I remember that. So
Say,
that's what I associate with him with is Led Zeppelin and Supertramp.
let's go. Yeah, I like those associations.
I
I'd say
associate
album of the
with
week, either the Smiths like complete album, if that's even fair to have.
That's
like,
not
album
fair. I don't think
okay.
that's fair. That's
Then
all their music.
The Queen is dead.
Okay, that's probably fair.
Queen,
yeah.
'cause she's
that's their
dead.
biggest album, right? Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
Because she's dead.
Yeah, it took like 30, 40 years, but now it's
True. Yeah. They're wrong, but now they're right. Okay, gotcha.
So what you got for us? I feel like you've been anxiously
I've
waiting.
been a little stewing on this.
You've been
one.
stewing on this one, and I'm excited. What you got?
This really happened. I guess it was Thursday night. This kind of hit me. I think I texted both of y'all. Or no, I texted him and saying that I have an album of the week, and that's kind of something we do. But Oh fuck. The album by Bob Seger, Stranger in Town.
It was Hollywood Nights.
Hollywood Nights. Still the Same.
Yeah,
Old time rock and
dude,
roll.
I've been listening to Still the Same. Like
And dude, so I was listening to I had some playlist on. I was washing my car. It was like the last warm day. Thursday was like the last warm day of the week. So like, fuck, I gotta wash my car. And so I had my speaker on, and I was drinking beer, washing the car, and I had like psychedelic rock or something. And somehow I get up. I'm like, all right, I'm about to take a shower. That's when I sent the picture of the shower beer.
Right,
Taking the shower, and Take It Easy by the Eagles comes on. And I listen to Take It Easy. I'm like, man, this is and I loved the Eagles. I love Bob Seger. I loved Jackson Brown when I was in high school, like so much. But I just appreciated them for the music,
Same.
And so I listened to Take It Easy, and the lyrics from Take It Easy: "Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy." And that shit hit in a different way than it ever hit for me whenever I was in high school, because I hadn't really experienced much in high school. But don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. And like that is a testament to like how a lot of people live now, is like they're constantly on the go, and like you always say, my generation is constantly moving, they're constantly hustling. That's so accurate, dude. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy, man.
Yeah. He felt it.
He felt it, and he was right, because the sound of his own wheels
was driving him
the
crazy.
Gears turning in his head was driving him crazy.
All the fucking late night shit of just trying to make it, trying to go.
Yeah.
Just
Non-stop.
be something.
And so from that, I ended up going listening to Bob Seger. And then I listened to Against the Wind, and I'm listening to like all the hits. I'm like, holy fuck, dude! Like this is like hitting me hard right now.
That's a good
album so I went there and listened to Stranger in Town, and it just like I kept listening to it, and I couldn't stop listening to it. It's so good, dude.
I play my music loud enough, especially the Smiths, where I can't hear the sound of my own wheels.
Especially the Smiths. Especially the Smiths.
Or Led Zeppelin. I mean, or Depeche Mode. We talked about, I think, at some point.
Okay.
But yeah, just you turn the music up loud enough, you can't hear your own wheels.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but then again, there's sometimes like
get lost in the sauce.
You listen to those songs with lyrics that guide your thinking, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
That kind of puts you into a space where all you can think about is your own wheels,
Yeah.
Definitely. I love it though. But
Definitely.
Yeah, Stranger in Town, that's my album. Bob Seger. It's been a long time since I listened to that genre of music. And
I've been listening to that for about 2 weeks now. I feel like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like kind of like the old like Doobie Brothers,
Yeah, okay.
That kind of like music. Billy Joel. The kind of like
right.
singer-songwriter stuff. Van Morrison. Some of these great singer-songwriters, and I've been feeling that a little bit lately too. Bob Seger's popped up on my playlist plenty of times, so
right.
I've been kind of feeling that way too.
Are you feeling that way?
Feeling that way too.
That's good. That's pretty good. It's been a good podcast, boys.
It always is. It always is.
This is so good, dude.
Are you feeling that way too?
So we did album of the week. Now, did you say you were gonna do? I don't know if it was first.
Oh, so that's gonna be for a special. That's coming up.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a little secret. We might have another special coming up. We're gonna make some content. We're gonna put some content out there for y'all motherfuckers.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. No spoilers on what it is.
Yeah, we're coming. We're coming at you.
But we're gonna have a special coming up soon. Don't forget to tune in to our Sunday livecast.
Sunday livecast, 10:30 every Sunday. We hit the unders, the overs, all the fucking hits.
We're hitting too. We're hitting 66%. We're making money.
Last week I was like, the only miss I thought we had out of all of it was
I felt bad about
the
it.
Giants, and I felt
I felt bad about it
because I knew it was a gamble, but I believed in it, and we just missed.
And even me, I was like,
and even you, and I even brought the Colts, and you dismissed it. I was like, is there any interest in the Colts defense? And you was like, yeah, the Browns just put up like 38 on them. And I'm like, God, you're right. Yeah.
And I was like,
and you brought up the Chargers, and I was like,
go Chargers. And then I was like, but
go Chargers, go.
I was like, but honestly, dude, the Giants is such an easy pick. Take the Giants.
Yeah,
I was like, I took him in DFS. But we're gonna go over all those odds. It's been such a fun time, man.
It has. It always is.
Jeremiah, you got anything?
I don't believe so. I mean, I liked being on here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Thanks
Dude,
for having
fuck
me.
yeah.
This was great.
Absolutely. It was so fun, dude.
Anytime.
I like
and,
I'm not a big IPA guy, but I like this Gaelic ale.
Yeah,
the
the
little
Holly
brown
Gaelic,
ale,
yeah,
actually.
always a great beer, and we'll be looking for the Jeremiah podcast coming out soon.
Dude, I would love to see you on the
Yeah, we want to
podcast,
hear
man.
what he's got to say because I feel like he's got a lot to say. And
Well, not only that, but I would love to be on someone else's podcast.
yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and to have
You know,
him on
yeah,
ours,
yeah.
Dude, it's a blessing to have friends that are willing to come out here and just sit out here and
Uh-huh.
speak your mind because I mean we're both not religious people and you come out here and talk about religion
Yeah,
for
yeah, and I
an
res-
hour and a half
I res-
Oh yeah,
and it was
sorry.
awesome. No,
and I
don't
respect it.
apologize.
Yeah,
That's what I
no,
wanted you on here
we
for.
respected it for sure.
Because you have such an extensive knowledge, and I don't want to be like you're fucking some genius guy, but
Mhm.
I mean you're very intellectual and you come on here with a lot of knowledge because it's something you practice very often, and it goes a long way.
I mean, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to not, just kind of.
Stay disciplined.
Yeah, I mean, like to go from where I was to where I am now, there's a lot of hurdles in the way. I mean, we're talking about like 1,000 years difference.
Yeah, and that's
You know,
life.
Yeah, I mean, it's
That's life.
huge
So
historical distance.
but yeah, man, we appreciate you being on here. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Sean because he gets to experience my side of friends, and
For
it's
sure.
cool. It's
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
such
I
a
like
cool
being
time.
on here, especially after seeing William was on here. Shout out William.
Yeah,
Ryan.
shout out to
This
William
is-
Reiner.
Yeah. And then shout out to all those people who are kind of like in the back of their mind they want to create a podcast or they want to like find a way to express themselves. I have to say that this is
It's
a
so much
great
fun,
way to do it, and if you're very passionate about something, put yourself out there and chase it. And I think that you've got a lot to say,
Right.
because you've done the research, you've been there, you have a lot to say. So
Yeah.
please,
Everybody has a lot to
please
say.
chase that, and don't worry about what people at work or whatever the fuck's going to say about you.
Exactly.
Just get out there and
It's
fucking
so much
do it.
fun, dude. It's so much
so
fun.
much
being out here.
fun.
Cheers to you guys,
Cheers,
man. Love
Jeremiah.
y'all.
Thank you so much
It
for
means
being
a
here.
lot.
Thank you, thank you.
And don't forget to like and
and
subscribe.
don't forget to like and
baby.
subscribe.
We out here. See you guys.
See you guys.
See ya.